Welcome to another edition of Seahawks Syndicate. I am your host, Brandon. No, I'm kidding. Of course, this is Brandon, Bryce, Mookie. Got my man Dan Vien's in the house, all collecting up as we do in our area here twice a month. And this is only to be in the look in the future to hopefully get this going even more to you guys. You guys have been watching. You guys have been asking for more. We've been saying, all right, we got you. And we're back again here with the biggest game on deck and most exciting time of the year right now. And I'm very happy to welcome back all my boys back in the house here. How we feeling, guys?
I don't know. It's a game. It's whatever.
Just another game of season.
Biggest Thursday night football game ever. Remember early in the early days of Thursday night football when these things were always dogs? It just didn't. First of all, they would just put bad games on the schedule. And then even when they tried to mix it up and make the games better, they just always ended up being dogs. It's not the case anymore. And tomorrow night, first time ever that two teams with 11 wins facing off on Thursday night should be a good one.
Yeah. I'm oddly calm about this game because Seattle needs a million things to happen for them to miss the playoffs. So, like, had they lost this Colts game, there would have been a little bit of nervousness, but they would have still been in a very good playoff position. But it's like, if they lose this game, all right, the division's probably gone. But we can now focus on what do they need to do these last 2 weeks of the season to gear up for the wild card run and having to win likely three playoff games in a row on the road. But I mean, still want to beat the Rams. It's been too long with them losing to the Rams at their close to their best, because it didn't feel as satisfying in the 2022 season where they're beating John Wolford and Baker Mayfield there on a few weeks' notice. Or even last year, okay, you beat the Rams, you beat them with Garoppolo starting at quarterback. They're resting guys for the playoffs. So to get after McVay with Matthew Stafford starting, that's just been something I've been champing at the bit to see. And maybe if it happens, it'll be like the last time the Seahawks beat the Rams on a Thursday night back in 2019 when they were putting Paul Allen to the Ring of Honor, and Seattle had that unbelievable win at the end. Like it felt like winning the Super Bowl in a way when they conquered the Rams that day. And it's a major reason why they missed the playoffs, did the Rams. So yeah, I'm still stoked for this game. I just wish it wasn't on a short week because it does a disservice to both teams.
Yeah, I'm excited for this game, but I feel I'm more concerned about this game than the first time we played the Rams, and the main reason for that's the offense. I had such higher hopes going into the game in SoFi. We'd come off those wins on the Commanders and the Cardinals, and the offense looked like it was turning, and the way that the offense has been the last 4 weeks for me gives me a little bit of, concern going into this game, given that weather's going to be a factor, and our run game hasn't exactly been something that's been consistent for us. I'm super excited. I think this is the biggest Seahawks game probably in the last decade, but I'm just concerned on the other side looking at it going, I think our defense will put a stellar performance forward. I just hope our offense can at least be somewhat comparable to match that performance.
I know we didn't have this on topic, but I think that's a good point off of what Bryce brings up here. So, Dan, Mookie, where is your confidence been at the highest of heights in this offense, and how much has it been eroded down? Or I guess as a bottom line, how much do you go away from be concerned by these performances recently? I mean, for me, I am a little bit, but I also think a little bit's a symptom of the fact they're playing a little safer on the offensive side of the ball to the defense. But I want to see where you guys might stand on this, because this is a little bit of a hotly contested item in the Seahawks fandom right now.
Yeah, I think it's easy, especially going into a game with this much importance, to personally, I think to kind of shine the spotlight a little too brightly on cracks in the armor and on what you perceive as weaknesses. I think we've seen enough from the Seahawks team, and I think Sunday was really a check mark in this column that they can win different ways and they can win ugly games. We've seen that now. I'm not as concerned maybe as certainly as you are, Bryce, about the issues with the offense, because the defense is so good. The special teams are so good. You can win on a day that your offense isn't playing at its best. And I find myself, I don't know how much confidence I have that they're going to win the game, but I don't feel a whole lot of anxiety or stress either. I think I'm just really in touch with where I believe this team is in their arc, their development, where they're going. I think they should go into this game feeling loose. They shouldn't have any pressure on them. And I hope they play that way. And I think if they do, I kind of think the Rams are the team that should feel some pressure this week, right? I mean, I think they're still pissed off over the first meeting that even though they won, people were saying the Seahawks were better. I think they're clearly the better team. They're the team that has the easier path in front of them. They should win the division, and sometimes that can be a real detriment. I hope this team plays loose tomorrow because they can beat this team. But that being said, and I'm sure this will be kind of a common theme throughout the show tonight, they don't have to win this game. I mean, for where I sit, for what I believe this team is, and for what I believe is in front of them, do they have to win it to get the number 1 seed in the NFC? Yeah. Do they have to win it probably to win the division? Yeah. I don't think any of that stuff is necessary for where they are right now. At some point, it'll be a must-win game where they have to beat the Rams or they have to beat the 49ers, or we're going to make judgments about the coaching staff and the direction of the organization and what's it going to take to get over the hump. I don't think that time is tomorrow.
That's a good point. Mookie, where you stand on that concern level?
I'm concerned about the offense, but I believe it was Chris Clough who rightfully brought some perspective to as far as the Seahawks offensive struggles. If anybody remembers the 2013 season, I hope you all do, but if anybody remembers how the end of the 2013 season happened, they were 11-1. They had that monstrous win over the Saints on Monday Night Football. The game was done by halftime. They win 34-7. And then after that, the offense really struggled pretty much all the way until the Super Bowl. I mean, they got 17 points against the 49ers. It didn't score a second half touchdown. They had a kind of a sluggish shutout win over the Giants where, yeah, they picked Eli off 5 times, but they had 1 touchdown drive that was coming off a short field, and then they otherwise struggled with a bottom feeding team. And then they had the loss to Arizona, 17-10. They picked Carson Palmer off 4 times, and they still don't win that game. The offense looks terrible. And they beat the Rams, but they got 27 points, but 7 came off of a pick 6 from Malcolm Smith. And then they weren't very good on offense against the Saints. It was basically the Marshawn Lynch show, and Russell Wilson couldn't complete a pass like half the time in the rain. They had the ugliest, but the classic win over the Niners. But again, that was just a knockdown, drag them out, classic 15-round heavyweight fight. And then everything clicked in the Super Bowl. The offense was really good in the Super Bowl. They just didn't have a lot of plays because, well, you had a special teams touchdown, you had to pick 6, and then the game was done by the third quarter, so they didn't have to really get into their offense a lot. So every team, every Super Bowl champion is going to have these peaks and valleys, whether on the offensive or defensive side of the ball. You think the Rams fans or even the Rams organization isn't a little concerned about how their defenses looked over the last couple of weeks? Like, as great as they played against the Seahawks in the first meeting, look what happened in the Panthers game. The Panthers are a bad offense every other week, but as a heavy favorite, the Rams struggled badly against Bryce Young, and Carolina was able to get 31 points. I know they had a pick 6 too, but Bryce Young looked really sharp. They were struggling to stop the run. And then the following week, yeah, they beat Arizona badly, but like Michael Wilson had a huge day against them. And even in this win over the Lions last week, they were getting shredded in the first half. So there's always going to be some sort of speed bump you're going to have to hit. And the Seahawks might be going through that on offense. But as Dan mentioned, the defense is playing at such a high level that you feel like it would be a stunner if the Seahawks were just totally non-competitive in a game. In other words, a 42-7 happening tomorrow like it did in 2017 would be a shocker, and that would be concerning to me. But otherwise, this team has shown itself to be pretty complete. Their offense, while struggling, is still above average. Their defense has been elite, and their special teams has been outstanding, as evidenced by another award for Jason Myers. So, yeah, I'm of the opinion that, yeah, to get the 1 seed, this is a must-win. As far as the playoff run, they don't have to win this game. It does get a lot harder, though, if you don't win this division, because think about it. Your last 2 games are on the road, and you might have to win 3 playoff games on the road to make the Super Bowl. That means you're going on the road 5 consecutive weeks, and that has never happened in the history of the NFL. So that's just my only caveat here. I know Seattle's great on the road, but 5 straight road trips is a lot to ask out of a team. So, yeah, still bring it on. If they beat the Rams, then I think this team is undeniable as far as being a true contender.
Yes.
I want to add something here. Oh, go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead, Bryce. No, you're good.
Well,
go for it.
Just the one thing I wanted to say about that 2013 run, and this is something I think we got to put into a bit of a caveat with that, comparing that offense to the hiccups that this offense is having. That offense could run the football. You had Marshawn Lynch. You had the ability to turn and go, hey, we're going to play a slobber knocker, but we're still going to average 4+ yards a carry and be able to turn to that. And hey, Russ, you're going to make a couple of plays with your legs. When I look at this Seahawks team, if the running game was more consistent and more of a viable thing you could legitimately turn to and be like, hey, we can rely on that to get us through some of those rough patches, I'd be more in that camp. But the way this offense functions and its, ability to bank on the explosive play and the passing game, to me, is not nearly as sustainable. And that's where my concern lies. If we had it the opposite way around where, hey, we need stuff, our passing game to catch up, like it was in 2013, I'm a little bit more on the less concerned side of the offense having troubles. Since it's flipped the other way, running the football and struggling with that to the point where it was 2.3 yards, I think, a carry against the Colts team, that to me is really concerning and what drives my concern more than anything with this offense down the stretch.
I think it's fair. I think you are probably a lot more of an efficient passing team than that Seahawks team, though you had the Russell legs that factor in there as well into the running attack, which can't be undersold as that part. You guys are speaking in great perspective on this. I like that you're all even headed about like, hey, it's not just, it is one game and there's still the rest of the season no matter what. But we want this game. I can sense it in your guys' breath. I can sense it in what you're like. We want the Rams. We want the number 1 seed. Last 3 times we've gone to the Super Bowl when we've had this damn thing. Let's get it up again. So let's talk about this game. And there are so many different points of the prism to look through here, but let's go through the first points as kind of order of priority, I guess, the most or least concerning. And first out the gate, let's talk about the injury that's the 800-pound metaphorical gorilla in the room being, we have news Charles Cross is now going to be out of this game with the hamstring injury. So I guess let's go with you, Dan, first, giving me on the, is this major injury considering where we're at? Is it how much we got to put this in perspective, the rest of the team a bit on this too with that, but how bad is this going to hold back the offense this upcoming game?
I'm not as concerned about this as I think some people are for a couple of reasons. Number one, they went out and aggressively early on in free agency. They took care of Josh Jones to lock down that swing tackle position that's been such an issue for them for so many years. Last year, we were down to Mike Jarrell at one point, in his rookie year as a Division II player, because the guy that they went out to get as insurance on both ends, George Fant, couldn't make it out of the first game. And then the guy they drafted for that role 3 years earlier was just terrible in Stone Forsythe and just wasn't an NFL caliber player. Josh Jones is, I think he's a pretty good player. And I went back today after the news broke and I watched that week 2 preseason game against the Chiefs where they just dominated running the football. And I know Chris Jones wasn't out there and Nick Bolton wasn't out there, but just about every other starter was. He was going against Tillery and Karlaftis and Dana and Omenahue. And he was dominant. He was pancaking guys, driving guys into the turf. The Seahawks were tearing off huge chunk plays. And in the passing game, what's been the concern with Charles Cross ever since he was drafted? It's lack of anchor at times, right? Josh Jones is 25 pounds heavier. He is a stout dude. He's really strong. He's got long arms. He uses his hands really well. He recovers well. I think it's a really cool opportunity for him. And I think he's got an opportunity to play himself into a longer extension as either the swing tackle here or, and I don't mean to go off on a tangent here and open a can of worms, but everybody just assumes that we're going to hand a massive contract extension to Charles Cross next offseason. He's by just about every metric out there an average left tackle. Now, he's solid. He's steady. He's solidified that position for us. And I would certainly be okay keeping him around long term. But I don't think the drop-off from Cross to Jones is as much as some people might think it's going to be.
Mookie.
Yeah, basically what Dan said, the Stone Forsythe, Michael Jarrell, and he's getting healthy scratches in Atlanta, by the way, so it tells you how much they think of his potential. And then George Fant brought back a second time. He ends up getting injured right away. So they have a better contingency. And I think the contingency was more for Lucas than Cross. And it ended up being that Lucas has been healthy pretty much all year, other than the little elbow thing or whatever he had last week. And now Cross is going to be out. I know somebody in the comments is going, I'm worried this could be like an 8+ week injury. No, Ian Rappaport is saying 2 to 4 weeks, which would be the rest of the regular season at worst. So if assuming Seattle makes the playoffs, he would be available for a wild card game or a divisional round game if they get the first round bye. So it's not as serious as it could have been. But yeah, Cross didn't tear anything up. So just be calm there. But Josh Jones is a competent swing tackle, and that's as to me the best that you could ask for. And having to go back to that 2013 team, that offensive line was really injured throughout the year. They were the most expensive line in the league, mostly because Okung was on a contract that predated the current CBA. So his rookie deal is not like the rookie deals you see now. But you had Okung, Unger, Giacomini, Carpenter, and Sweezy. You didn't really have them for much of the year at the same time. So that's when you got to endure the Paul McQuiston, Michael Bowie, those types of backups. And that's why Wilson was getting sacked 7-8 times a game during that middle portion of the season. I don't think we're going to see that with Josh Jones. I think he's going to be closer to a competent tackle who doesn't need as much help compared to a tackle who might need a tight end or somebody to chip with them. And really, it's more concern for this game because Carolina's pass rush isn't good. San Francisco's pass rush, because Bosa's out and then Williams has been out and they're not coming back this year, they're struggling bad. It's this Rams game you're concerned about because of what Jared Verse can do, Byron Young. I don't know if Fisk will play, but even still, like that defensive front is lethal. And we know look the games they love to run up front. That could be a problem for Seattle. But in terms of the other games coming up, I think they can live with Josh Jones being a backup tackle who has to start in a pinch. So yeah, it sucks to lose Cross. And it sucks even more that because this game was so close, you couldn't just pull Cross and the starters out sooner and have them have to play game-winning field goal duty. But nevertheless, these things will happen. Seattle, in perspective, has been very fortunate to have so few injuries on this offensive line, such that this has been one of their best years of pass pro and forever. The run blocking has been a problem, sure, but as Dan mentioned, that preseason game, Josh Jones was definitely moving people around in that preseason game. And when we watched him at training camp, we noticed that Josh Jones was getting a lot of reps with the starting line while Cross was dealing with his hand. So, yeah, I'm feeling comfortable with Jones in at left tackle. And if things start to go a little bit south in the Rams game specifically, I trust or at least think that Kubiak would be smart to at least give him a little bit of help on that side.
Well, let's go to this a little bit, Bryce, and pivoting based off of this discussion a little bit, because I'd like to get your perspective specifically on this. You and I were in alignment last time on the Rams game and that there was entirely too much chipping. You were running sometimes double chip, which was leading to 3 guys going into a 7-man secondary of the Rams, which is kind of hard to find many cracks of daylight to throw into from a passing perspective. I really find myself saying you got to trust up Jones a little bit on this thing. It's not like Verse's reputation doesn't quite catch on to what his production quite fits. And so I say avoid this, but I'd like to know, do you say no? You got to make sure he doesn't destroy you in this game and you got to accommodate those chips at a healthy level. Or as Mookie just intimated on, feel it out a little bit. And then if it does go bad, then start drawing the chips over to his side. Where do you stand on how you want to approach that?
So it's kind of interesting for me. I am not in the camp of, hey, we need to keep a guy in to help Jones out. Like he has to be able to be sustainable on his own at points. And the problem you've got in, I'd say the last 4 games since we had the 4 interception game versus the Rams and the last time we played them, is that's kind of been Seattle's, hey, if we're giving up pressure, we need to help. We need to keep guys in. Well, the problem is then you only have a certain amount of eligible receivers, and guys that chip and then release, they're so laid out into the concepts that they don't really affect it much for coverage per se. I think if you're going to help Jones, slide, move the pocket, do different things that way than just resort to, hey, we're going to chip. If you slide your pocket and roll your quarterback out different directions, D linemen struggle with trying to get a pinpoint on where that quarterback is going to be and where that pocket is going to be set up. And to your point, then the more receivers you can get out into, the more you have actual options for Sam to get rid of the ball to. And like, I know, some people are in the chat saying, hey, Sam's got to let it rip. They can't be as, kind of hands-on with him as they've been. And I think that's what's kind of made Sam struggle a bit here is since that game with the Rams and the turnovers is, we're going to kind of tighten up the leash a little bit. Well, the problem is when you've tightened it, you've also taken away his options by keeping guys in, whether it's the tight ends, whether it's the running backs, even though they weren't really being used, but to an extent, and you put maybe only 3 guys or 2 guys out into a concept because you max protect. Well, 2 guys trying to get open versus 7 is not an easy thing to do. And now he holds onto the ball longer. Now those windows get that much tighter to throw into where he was the best tight window thrower earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. Part of that was you had more guys out in concepts and you trusted your O-line to pass pro. You got to get back to that. And as scary as that seems, I agree with you, Brandon. Jared Verse has this daunting, intimidating kind of persona about him, but his production doesn't necessarily match it. He's a good player. I'm not taking that away from him, but it's not like he's Myles Garrett. And that's how we don't treat a player that's not Myles Garrett level as Myles Garrett. And so I think that's what Kubiak's got to do. Move your pocket, do different things than just, hey, we're going to chip and keep our tight ends in and only throw 2 or 3 guys out into a concept.
I'm glad to hear you're in the kind of the same boat with it. And I think just to put a button on this cross discussion, we've got to feel pretty darn good about the fact that you get to this point of the season and you're looking on both sides of the ball from an injury front. This is what are really one major injury aside from Arroyo and McIntosh that you could look at. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you have pretty much everybody back in tow at this point in time. It's as much an all hands on deck situation as you could ask for this deep into the season. And I think you look even the Rams, they've got their Quinn Lake over here, Havestein down. I know McClendon's played well for them, but you can go to them. They've had their own share of it. Devontae Adams being out in this game. You made an argument that that's more harmful to them than the cross injury is to us, couldn't you?
Sure. Yeah. And I agree on the verse thing. I was just catching up on some stats today. He's not even in the top 20 in next gen stats pass rush win rate. That shocked me, but the way I kind of think about verse is he's sort of the mirror image or the opposite of Anthony Bradford. It's like the underside of the pillow to Anthony Bradford. Bradford, people
the cold side of the pillow.
People take his bad reps, the 4 or 5 of them a game, and they put him out there. And so there's a perception that he's like that on every snap. Well, Jared Verse, he has 3 or 4 reps a game where he's just violent, right? And he's just dominating guys and knocking tackles back or whatever. And then the rest of the reps, the rest of the game, sometimes you're watching Rams games and you're like, is Verse playing today? Like he kind of disappears, right? And so I do think that there's a disconnect there between the perception of what he is and the actual production you're getting from him. Byron Young's the same way. He's not on that list either. They're both really good run defenders, and they show up in the top 20 in that list, but not rushing the passer. And that team, they've given up almost 300 yards passing a game in their last 3 games. I mean, they're stopping the run, but they've been vulnerable against the pass. Maybe that's how we can attack them, which just has all sorts of layers of irony and contradiction to it because of what happened with Sam in the last game. And then the fact that there's going to be like gusty winds up to 20 miles an hour wreaking havoc with the passing game.
Well, that's the part we got to get into here next, because I think that's a big part of this. But absent the winds a blowing, like we're out there in the open waters and the storms a flying, I think you got to lean into passing here because it's what you've done best. And we've tried to run our head in the wall games of, we got to run. We got to stay committed to it, man. Just got to stay committed to it, man. We're getting into down and distance situations. And then people start going, why are we having better drives? And you go, well, we end up in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9s. Looking at the data again here today or yesterday, awful team. We get into 3rd and 7 and longer. We've got to find a way out there. And I think this is where we can meld this, because it's the old throw the ball out into the back out in space. And maybe it's only going to get to 3 yards. But that's better than what we're getting out of the ground game consistently right now. So that's a win. If it's just that out to Charbonnet or Walker on some route, especially because it starts to make the defense play a little bit more honest rather than sinking back into coverage. Bryce, you're nodding your head. Let me start with you. You feeling that?
Oh, 100%. And if you go back and, you listen to Bill Walsh, who is the grandfather of this system that we are running here with Kubiak and Shanahan and McVay, he used to talk about, to your point, Brandon, getting the backs the ball in the flats and these short completions to your running back are an extension of your run game. They're not really an extension of your full-blown passing attack. They're a way to get the ball to your backs in space and let them create. That's what Roger Craig was so great at with those 49ers teams, was Montana would just dump it to him in the flat and give him those one-on-one opportunities with a linebacker in space. There's no reason we can't do that with a Kenneth Walker or a Zach Charbonnet and give him those opportunities to open up said run game to then go back to it. And that's, I think for me, that's driven me the most nuts lately with Kubiak is it doesn't seem like there is a idea of how do we get the running game going. It's just, to your point, let's pound ourselves into a wall constantly and eventually the wall will give. Well, it's not giving. And even with lighter boxes, it's not giving. So what do you need to do? Find another way to manufacture run type plays, whether it's 3 yards in a quick flat route to a running back, to give yourself more manageable conversion opportunities later on in the drives. And that's the thing for me that's been driving me the most nuts. So I'm aboard with you there on that train, Brandon. Like, they need to find a way to manufacture those yards.
Mookie, I did get an answer from you on Devontae Adams' bigger loss than Charles Cross for the Rams. And then are you on favor of, absent a typhoon, maybe lean a little bit heavier into the passing attack in this game?
Yeah, not having Devontae Adams is a big deal to me, but in the first game, he had 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown. Like the Seahawks did a really good job. Now, there were a couple of opportunities that Adams either couldn't catch or Stafford misfired, but what are the odds that the Seahawks are going to hold Adams to 1 catch and a yard a second time? Probably low. So with Tutu Atwell seemingly out of favor in this offense, I know they've had some other injuries. I don't remember if Kobe Parkinson is not injured. I think he's off the injury report, so he should play. And he's been playing a lot better after being kind of an afterthought in that offense. Higbee's hurt, so he's had a bigger role. So there's a big drop, though, from strictly the wide receiver position from Puka Nacua and then everybody else when you subtract Devontae Adams. So I think that will have an impact on how the Rams are going to operate the passing game. Still have to be aware of how they get their tight ends involved because Seattle has had some issues dealing with tight ends throughout the year. But nevertheless, when I think about what Bryce said, just to double back on what he mentioned regarding the extension of the run game, it doesn't have to be screens either, by the way, because we know what happens with the Seahawks try running back screen. That is as good as being the extension of a failing run game.
In fact, avoid that.
Yes, a simple check down, a throw out to the flat, that's totally fine. But another way to look at screen passes as an extension of the run game without it being to the running backs, remember in the Colts game, JSN had 2 catches where the Colts were in off coverage, so there's yards of space. Just throw a quick out to him. If you even have 1 blocker, you're going to get at least 5 yards. That's a successful play to me. I think his first catch against the Vikings was the same thing. A quick out, nearly jumped by Andrew Van Ginkel, but that's pretty much all he does when he's at the line of scrimmage. He's either sacking the quarterback or trying to jump a screen. But it was just a quick pass to JSN in space, get him out there. Cooper Kupp killed Seattle for years on those like tunnel screen plays where he can catch the ball and make a little room in space. I don't understand why Seattle hasn't even tried to do that this year. Like, Kupp can still break tackles. He might not be a guy who's winning in man coverage often anymore, but he can still make people miss in the open field. They can still fall forward for first down. So I think that's a way to get the ball out of Darnold's hands quickly, too, is if the Rams are going to play a little far off, like, get the ball out to your receivers as fast as possible and let them do some work after the catch. Seattle, I think, has got some guys who are capable with yards after the catch. So we'll see what happens. They're going to have to kill this jet sweep stuff to Shaheed because teams are on it, are onto it. I rolled my eyes when it happened in the Colts game. But nevertheless, this run game is not working. And even though I want it to work, sometimes you got to cut your losses. And they cannot also continue to try and establish the running game early in order to set up play action. It was malpractice to throw 1 play action pass in the first half of the Colts game. And I know it was dropped by JSN, but still, the fact that it was just 1, they are not equipped to have a struggling run game and be in primarily straight drop back. Like it's not going to work. They're fine in hurry up tempo offenses with straight drop back, but when it's in the flow of the game, they don't really have answers. And another thing for Kubiak, a first down incompletion should not scare you into I have to run the ball on 2nd and 10. I think Darnold's sack rate is pretty low on early downs. So if you see 2nd and 10, come up with an easy play. If you don't want to get it all on 2nd and 10, fine. Just do something that is more than 2 yards in a cloud of dust because you're inviting 3rd and long. And I hate to say it, but this is kind of the issue we had with Brian Schottenheimer in that infamous playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys, where, wow, we're running into this brick wall, and every time we throw the ball, it actually works. So I don't want to have this be kind of a repeat thing with Kubiak where they're getting behind the sticks and they can't get out of it.
It made sense early in the season to develop this, Dan, but teams like Niners that have got an outside zone run offense with their offense and Mac Jones in there has given you a bit of a blueprint to my eyes. You run that exact style of offense. You could kind of apply similar stuff. Are you feeling what the boys are feeling here in this approach?
I am, and I hope the team does, because we heard about this all the way back to when we were all together in training camp, and we kept hearing Clint Kubiak talk about, we're going to find out what we're good at, and then we're going to lean into that. Well, I think the days of trying to figure out what you're good at are over. And now you have a legitimate chance to win a division, maybe even get the number 1 seed, make a deep playoff run. Just take that part of your playbook that's not working, that part of your call sheet, and just throw it out, right? And do what you do best. And what they do best is quick passing game, Sam getting the ball out of his hands quickly, getting it to Shaheed now. It looks like he's developing some chemistry there. Get it to JSN, get those tight ends involved. And, gosh, Bryce and I think text about this on almost a daily basis. Like, get Sam on the move and get the ball to the running backs more. Charbonnet and Walker still are on pace to combine for fewer catches in the passing game this year than Alvin Kamara had in New Orleans under Clint Kubiak by himself last year. And Kamara missed 3 or 4 games. So for whatever reason, it's not something that's followed Kubiak in his career. He's used running backs in the passing game. I can only imagine that the main reason that it's not happening here is what you guys touched on earlier, that they've been forced to keep those guys in a little longer than normal, and they're slower to get out into their hot routes and into their flats because they've had to help in pass protection. I'd like to see them just come out again, play free and easy, play confident, have a good game plan, and go to the quick game and get the ball out of Sam's hands quickly and move him around. And you know what? If I'm Clint Kubiak too, or Andrew Janocko, before kickoff tomorrow, I'm whispering in his ear, if you see daylight, run. This is This is that game. If you see daylight, just run.
Yeah. I understandable week 8. You want to protect your body. You're like, I'm going to take that hit. That's going to hurt me for the next 4 weeks. And okay, brother, we're down the home stretch. Okay. So now's the time we lay it on the line a bit. Don't be scared to run. You've got to run. He's got to use his legs a little bit more because this offense needs every little kind of a little cobblestone you can put in the road here to get this thing down the street. You've got to stick it in there right now. And this is one of those things that has not been utilized as much by him. So Dan, to the heart of what you're saying, I come out of this and I tell you, okay, Dan, that's one thing to have that big talk, big man. You're going to want to throw the ball before. What if it means 38 passing attempts in this game? What if it means a 63% pass to run rate?
He threw it 44 in the first one, right?
44 interceptions, Dan.
He threw four
interceptions with your mighty game plan here.
But you know what he did in between the interceptions, right? He averaged almost 10 yards per completion. And at the end of the game, he made some adjustments. He took him on 2 long drives, one for a touchdown and one for what would have been a game-winning field goal. Like, he has that ability to be a goldfish. He has that ability to shake things off. And that's what gives me hope about this game. Yeah, the 4 interceptions are bad. You can't sugarcoat it. You can't. He has to fix it. And there's still a concern that maybe he's not playing as free and easy and as aggressively as he was before, to Bryce's point about the Ben Solak thing today with the tight window throws. But in between those 4 interceptions, he did some good stuff and he was able to beat that secondary. And that was a healthier secondary than the one they're going to face tomorrow, because the numbers in the passing game since Quentin Lake went on injured reserve for them are pretty stark in favor of their opponents being able to throw the football on them. And they might not have Braden Fisk tomorrow either.
Yeah, Lake is kind of the glue to that secondary in so many ways in what they do. Before we get into a few more of the intricacies in this game itself, let's talk about another part of this game that's become more of a deal. We thought that the rain was going to be standing forth. And so what we did, folks, is we had Dan go to school this past week, do a crash course, online course, meteorology. He's been studying atmospheric conditions, wind flows, charts. He's been getting the depths of it. So Dan, can we get an update on both the weather report that we can fully expect is going to be 100% the truth as of game time right now, please? With all that work you put in.
I did a couple of shifts as a meteorologist on Cable 8 News back at the Edward.
You guys thought I was lying. You thought I was lying, you folks. Tell the truth here.
Big atmospheric river coming in this way, a little trough. There's always a trough involved. Right now, I'll give you 2 different sources because I like to corroborate my sources, right? Mookie, do you appreciate that?
Yeah.
And
Mookie loves that.
According to the Weather Channel, if you look at their hourly forecast for tomorrow in Seattle, it looks like the rain is going to let up just about kickoff. And so there may still be some precipitation during the game, but it should be of the lighter variety. It's the wind that's going to cause the major issues. Looks like 15 to 20 miles an hour out of the southwest, gusts up to 30 miles an hour. It's even more interesting if you look at the Apple weather map. They show it as a line graph, and you can see the rain throughout the day, and then it just drops off at 5 o'clock. So a driving rainstorm, which is what I think a lot of us were concerned about with the forecast on Monday, because that is what the forecast was, that this third wave of the Pineapple Express that the Northwest is dealing with right now was going to extend through Thursday. That's changed throughout the week. It feels like there is going to be a little bit of a reprieve tomorrow. It's going to be more about wind and less about the rain.
Bryce, what is a game? But thank you for that. On the scene, my man on the scene, Dan, giving us the goods on the lowdown, folks. Batten down the hatches and get yourself safe. You don't want to be anywhere near the coastline.
If I knew you were gonna, I would have gotten a whole background thing ready.
I know. I should have prepped you on that. That would have been awesome. Have you bring up a thing and just like, we're going to have get all real super sunny with your personality. All of a sudden. Well, great folks we've got today for you. A great day of weather. Bryce, how hard is it to throw a football in 30-mile-an-hour winds? And can we think of a Seahawks game in Hawk history that would match up to kind of those conditions that you can think of? Mookie, you be trying to think about one as well. If you've got one, you can think of historically speaking.
So speaking, Brandon, to throwing in the wind, it was funny. I actually just did a live show with Blaine from the Rams Call Sheet podcast, and we talked about it. He asked me about it. It for deep passes into the wind, it becomes challenging because you're trying to layer a ball into these deep routes, get it over that DB or that zone coverage, and get it to drop in. And when you do that, you tend to tilt your shoulders. So now you're putting that ball up into more of a situation where you're not necessarily driving it as much as you are trying to control where it lands. When you're throwing outbreakers and inbreakers under 15 yards and you can drive the ball, well done, Dan. Well done.
What?
Bravo. You can, if you've got the arm strength like Sam Darnold and
Hurricane Dan.
Hurricane Dan. Monsoon Dan reporting live.
That's right. Gonna get wet outside, folks. Sorry, Bryce. Go ahead.
Oh, it's all good. If you got like the arm to do it, like a Sam Darnold does, or a Josh Allen, and some of these guys that have bigger arms, it can drive the ball. The intermediate inbreakers into the wind don't matter as long as you get a good spin on the ball. You should be fine. The challenge actually is throwing with the wind, especially when it's like this, because now how you normally are throwing in one quarter where you're like, okay, I got to really, get my hips and my rotation into this throw. And then when you switch directions, now it's like, okay, I got to go back to how I normally throw. But even how I normally throw now is almost got too much power because the ball is going to take off on you and it's going to get an extra push. So now when you throw those deep passes, now what you normally would throw, it adds 5 yards to your receiver as he's running down the field, or you're going to whip that ball into that window. It might get there a second earlier because the wind pushes it rather than where it would normally end up. So it's really understanding, like, again, from a conceptual standpoint, when are you going to take your shot plays and how comfortable are you? Like if it was me and you're going into the wind and you decide, okay, we're going to take a shot play coming out in the second quarter for say, I'm not taking that shot play until my quarterback's had a few throws with the wind before I take that shot. So he actually understands, okay, if I'm going to throw this 30-yard ball down the sideline, I now understand roughly where I have to be and how I can get that ball and put it on the money, because otherwise you're just going to oversail it.
Mookie, can you think of a game somewhere recently in history where the winds factored down in there in Lumen in a way that 30 miles an hour probably would if it gets up to that?
Well, the most extreme example would be way back because I might have tweeted it out. The Hanukkah Eve storm where the Seahawks just needed to beat a bad 49ers team and they would be NFC West champions. I did not lose power that evening somehow, some way, and I wish I did because it was one of the worst Seahawks games that I can ever recall watching. And it was a challenge for that team. They couldn't run the ball, and Hasselbeck was having trouble throwing it. Alex Smith had engineered 8 3-and-out drives and then suddenly turned the best quarterback in the league in the fourth quarter. I can think of a recent game, a rainy game last year that didn't involve the Seahawks at all. The Rams and the 49ers rematch in Santa Clara, where the Rams won the 12-6 Classic. And Stafford was struggling bad in that game. He finished 16 of 27. He had one deep throw to Puka Nacua that I think pretty much helped them win the game. But Stafford was spraying passes all over the joint. He should have been picked like 2 or 3 times. Stafford spent most of his career as a dome quarterback. And indeed, even with the Rams, he's playing in what is effectively an indoor stadium. I know there's some atmosphere, so some outdoor elements that can go in through the kind of the sides of the stadium. But in terms of anything overhead, his home games have a roof up top. And that's been the case for his entire career. So that's going to affect him, maybe not to like Jared Goff extremes or Tua extremes, where as soon as the temperature dips below 50, their arm ceases to work. Stafford, we know, has got one of the more amazing arms of his generation. But I am admittedly stuck in terms of like recent rainy games for the Seahawks. I know that Russ definitely struggled at times getting his accuracy down in rain games. So I think of that Raiders game where the Raiders started like 0-12 in 2014. and they should have won by a bunch, and they only won by 6. Russ was 17 of 35 in that game against a terrible Raiders offense. So, as Bryce mentioned, like controlling the ball when you're throwing with the wind can often, and for somebody like Russ, I think that matters quite a bit. So, but I'm no meteorologist, that's for sure.
Well, Doppler Dan, are we going to see this be a benefit to the Seattle Seahawks absent the home field advantage, or is this a wash between the Rams on this one?
I wanted, as I was getting ready for this game and getting ready for our show tonight, I wanted to believe, for many of the reasons that Mookie just pointed out, that a rainy day is probably not great for Matt Stafford. He's played most of his career playing under a roof. And then before I could even dig in and look some stuff up, I had a memory, and I thought back to 2023, Rams at Ravens in December. Do you remember this game?
Mm-hmm.
It was a torrential downpour on a natural grass field in Baltimore, and the Ravens end up winning the game 37-31, but Stafford had a day. 23 out of 41, 294, 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams ran for 114. So it didn't seem to affect Stafford much that day. In fact, incidentally, his leading receiver that day, 8 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown for Cooper Kupp. So maybe he'll have a good day in the rain.
He's from the Pacific Northwest. I'm just saying he grew up in this. You know what I mean? Is it like the scene of Bane and Batman where he's like, "You've merely been indoctrinated tonight. I was living here." And it's a little bit like that going on, you know? So maybe we get a little bit of that from Cooper Kupp.
I've got one game that comes to mind when you talk about bad weather in Seattle where it affected the game. I got to go 2013 divisional round versus the Saints.
It's a great one, man. That put that Saints offense to bed. That almost
you had
alone.
the wind. Yeah, you had the wind, the rain, and that was the Russell Wilson gloves on hand game because he struggled to hang on to the ball.
Was that the game when they got into it with Jimmy Graham before the game?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chancellor, or no, it was Bruce Irvin getting into him, getting chippy at
Who's
Jimmy who? Jimmy who?
Who's Jimmy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was the game I'm talking about. But that was the one where like the flag poles that run down into the stadium were like having the flags almost ripped off of them. It was whipping through there so hard.
I was at that game that Mookie referenced, the 49er game back in what year did you say that was? Was that 2011? 2006. And it was as hard a rain as I've ever experienced. I remember I parked in one of those exposed parking lots, like a local business that rents out their lot, right? And so it was like this 2006. You had to pay with actual money. And so I'm rolling down the window to give the parking attendant my $25 or whatever it was back then. And it was like the parking attendant had a fire hose in his hand and was just shooting it into my car. Like I couldn't hand him the money. The money probably wasn't even any good. It was probably just disintegrated by the time he wrapped his fingers around it. And I couldn't even get the window rolled up fast enough. And then my car, I was just soaked. That was crazy. That was insane. I'll never forget that one.
I can occasionally go crazy like that. So we think it's pretty much you guys all, with maybe a minor point to us, but Stafford's had some moments. Even last year, Philadelphia in the conference title game, that was pretty bad weather conditions, albeit snow. Still, you do like that we do practice outside. They got those boys the wet balls. I like to hear that we're not just going auto inside at times. I think there are some teams that have inclement places that they don't always play outside of those inclement places, and then they get out into their game field, and it's more like a neutral place as far as those conditions versus them having, again, a little bit of an edge in understanding how to play in those conditions. But this will be a interesting factor in this one and how it goes. Two teams that want to run light boxes and play to depths. Do they now change their strategy in light of the weather as well and start to just stack the box because they know the throw can't get there? Do you have something to say, Mookie? Sorry.
Yeah. If there is one benefit to this not being supposedly a super rainy game, I'm less concerned about Stafford in the rain and more about Seattle's sick addiction to fumbling every week. That a rainy game might kind of, especially Sam. I mean, Sam fumbled last week when he took that hit while scrambling. And then they're fumbling in domes. JSN had a fumble go out of bounds. They've had 2 weeks in a row where a fumble's gone directly out of bounds. But for a team as turnover prone as Seattle, I think I would prefer that the conditions not be so conducive to a lot of turnovers in a game, because everybody except the running back somehow has been prone to some sort of mistake with ball security.
It's very true. It's been slippery fingers in regards to that one. And this is going to, turnovers, as we saw in the first game, are going to factor so heavily into this one beyond some of the other parameters we're going to discuss. In fact, maybe the ultimate. determiner in this game is who can keep and play a clean game in this, especially this kind of environment. To your point, Mookie. Let's get into some of these intricacies in this game. We started out a little bit with offense, with all pretty much in agreement that absent the conditions just preventing you from. And if we do have the win, by the way, Bryce, to your point about throwing with the wind, got to have a moment where you just throw it up to Rashid and let him go underneath it then, right? Like let the wind go take it and like put it out in front of him and let him go get it. Offensively speaking, running the ball has been tough. And we're going to talk a little bit about Bradford here in a second with this, but my outlook on this has been that we pass blocked well. We're run blocking is really god awful. I think even beyond what the grades are there. I watched the all-22, and what just stands out to me is you're not getting stalemates, you're getting too much penetration, and all of this stuff is happening too consistently all at once. Dan, where are you at on this and your outlook of it? Because this is another place where there is a little bit of divergence of opinion in the Seahawks fandom.
Yeah, where I'm at is you can't give up on it. But again, I think stop trying to force it. If it's there, right? If they back off and they give you a light look, then audible into it, sure, and do what you can. I'd prefer to see them stick within the tackles. They seem to be better there. They continue to try to pound the outside, and I know that that's the foundation of this scheme, but it's just not working. And I think the most frustrating part of it was, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Dan Orlovsky did a pretty cool breakdown on this on ESPN, and he showed a bunch of running plays from the Colts game, and it was a different it was somebody to blame on every single play, somebody different on every single play. It was the tie, it was the center, it was Sundell not getting to the second level, it was Bradford missing on a block, it was Zabel overextending and getting beat on the inside, it was the tackles getting beat on the edge, it was tight end not getting to his block, it was pullers not getting to their targets, or if they hit their target, it was the running back not going where the hole was designed to go. It's like an engine, it's like an 8-cylinder engine, and only 7 cylinders are ever firing at any one time. And that tells me that that's probably not going to get fixed this year. It's probably not all just going to click, like we were hoping that it would. It was frustrating. The funny part was that in between all of that, he kept talking like he only showed like 1 rep of Bradford missing on a block, but in between all the other plays he was showing, he'd be like, and here you see Sundell doesn't get to the second level. Boy, they got a problem at right guard. And here the tight end didn't get to this guy, but man, they've got a problem at right guard. I know. He kept weaving that into his narrative, but he's seen the memes. I just kept thinking, and to their credit, that's exactly what Mike Macdonald's been telling us all year. It's just a little thing here, it's a little thing there. We're confident it's going to get dialed in at some point. I think week 16, not that you give up on it, but maybe you just admit what you are and what you aren't, and you game plan accordingly.
Mookie, is this a more offensive line problem in the run game, more scheme problem, or is it more running back problem if you got to dish out the majority of the blame to the issue as Dan just laid out?
I think a good chunk of it is the offensive line. And this isn't to say, people got to be replaced. Like, there's only one position right now where I'm pretty sure there might be somebody new starting next year. Otherwise, most people would think that Cross will start at left tackle and Lucas at right tackle, and then Zabel is your left guard for the present and the future. Center is admittedly kind of up in the air, but there doesn't have to be wholesale changes to this offensive line. But if I could add, it's more than just the offensive line in terms of blocking. Like, the tight ends have not been doing a great job either.
Yes.
Particularly AJ Barner. And Barner was supposed to be in this league primarily as a guy who's great as a blocking tight end, but he's had some ugly reps. Sauber just got back. I mean, Callerup has had some good moments as a run blocker, but he's had some missed assignments. They're just not pushing people backward enough. And when they run as many toss plays as they do, if they're not getting out in space in time, that's already a problem. But if they're not winning their blocks and they're not getting out in time to drive people forward, or at least lock them up, then you're guaranteed to have a loss on the play. And I think they're running too many toss plays for their own good. The running back situation, I think they're going to be changing some things at running back next year. Charbonnet should not be a lock to be on this roster next year, even though he's got a year left on his deal. Walker, I've been bouncing back and forth of whether he's kept or he isn't, and now I'm kind of back to thinking he might just be somebody who gets let go in free agency. I know I'm kind of leaning toward a lot of my personal biases here. This team, if you put this team as it is, but had prime Chris Carson on it, I think the running game would be a little bit better because Carson presents a different style. He's not going to freelance like Walker can. He won't chop his feet at the line as much as Charbonnet does, and he's more powerful than both of them. So I think that Chris Carson could actually be a more effective back, even with some of the run blocking issues in this offense than what we've seen out of K9 and Charbonnet. But those two have been victims of a lot of shoddy blocking where what do you expect them to do if there's a guy right in their face, right at the line of scrimmage as soon as the ball is handed off to them? So it is frustrating that we're going through this year after year after year. It's funny that the last time they had a truly good week-to-week rushing attack was maybe the last 6 weeks of the 2021 season when Rashad Penny started to figure things out. And then the last time you could say they were a season-long, consistently good running team was either 2018 or the 2019 team. And I think 2019 was Carson's last fully, completely healthy year up until all hell broke loose. And then he gets injured, Penny gets injured, Procise gets injured, and then you have to bring back Marshawn. So, the running game at this point is what it is. I'm not saying that they need to be extremely pass heavy, but if they're going to be this run heavy, they need to pick their battles better in terms of what type of plays they're running. And I agree with Dan. They need to run inside more than they are running outside because it just seems like they're not getting outside fast enough for those plays to be effective.
Well, this is where we push it off the back of what you're saying to that, because I agree with you on that, Mookie, about the inside nature. And there's a little bit of kind of cut your losses to this approach to me on this, where we come back to positive yardage is the good thing here. Can't have the negative yards. And boy, 3 yards just looks like gold at this point. So, Bryce, we've got a conundrum coming into this game. Achilleo Witherspoon's probably going to be back and active out there for the Rams in this one. That man does not want to tackle. Emmanuel Forbes, the Rams fans has quickly learned with him, is a man that does not want to tackle. So we've the conundrum where these gentlemen made 2 very good points about the fact that, hey, let's run a bunch of duo and get downhill, brother. You know what I mean? Like, let's just let's make it all dirty and just give me the double team and just slam that running back right behind them. But you have the places where you want to maybe isolate out there on those edges with those guys and making them tackle. So, do we just lean on into the runs on inside all the way here? Do we have to try to test that stuff out on the edges? Do maybe test that stuff on the edges with those outlet passes?
I think it's a bit of both. If you're going to run this, I think you have to go with what works, which is inside zone has kind of been what's been better for this team, honestly, and running some duo. And even, when we do run counter, it does seem to work, or even a split zone where a tight end goes across, kind of get into that area. But at the same token, like, I would be running bubbles and I would be running quick receiver screens and stuff and making these guys tackle in open space and get it outside to the perimeter. You kind of have to do both to survive, to manufacture, to your point, Brandon, these 3-yard gains that look like gold. You can't just be like, okay, we're outside zone and we're not going anywhere with it, because having watched the film, this offensive line doesn't seem to be built for outside zone because their interior outside of Zabel just can't get there. Like, outside zone, your linemen have to all be comfortable playing in space and understand where teams are going based on the angles they're going to have to take from their spots. And it just breaks. Like, you can literally watch the line. It should be moving kind of as a group, like a mob, to a certain direction. And that's how you open up some of these backside cutbacks. And our group doesn't. It starts going and then it just like falls apart like wet paper. And then there's a guy right in the backfield as our running backs are 3 yards from the line of scrimmage and they're having to make a miss. So you got to kind of get downhill and then get outside. To me, this is very reminiscent. Like, this running game and this trying to run the ball and make it work reminds me a lot of 2007 with the Seahawks, where Sean Alexander started to really struggle and they couldn't really manufacture the run game. And that's when Mike Holmgren decided, okay, we're going to turn this over to Matt and we're going to start using Maurice Morris more out of the backfield and we're going to get him involved in the run game. And that's how it got them to that divisional game against, I think it was Green Bay Packers in Lambeau, and it snowed and Brian Russell couldn't cover anybody. So that was a whole thing into itself. I know Mookie appreciates that when I say that all the time, but that's how that offense functioned that year. It was, we can't do what we were good at with Sean prior. Mike went, we've got to try and manufacture a run game. And then all of a sudden shotgun became a thing. And Matt was stepping back into shotgun and they were running dump passes out to Maurice Morris. And they were running Leonard Weaver and Morris downhill into that offensive line instead of trying to get outside and allow the cutback. And then Sean came back because he did get injured that year. I think he broke his foot or something at one point. That might have been 2006. He got injured at some point. He comes back and Sean did not look like he fit at all in the offense. That's where I feel like they are right now with this group. If I could take a parallel of offenses we've seen before, this Seahawk offense seems very similar to me to 2007.
That's a good reference. And I just come back to that stat. I remember Brett Coleman posted on the Hawks offensive line last year, and A and B gap runs, not runs to the outside, but just inside runs. What was 0.6 yards before contact? Eagles were number one. Seahawks were 32nd last year in this realm. It's a hard problem to fix overnight, over one season, over one OC. There was a lot there that needed to be rectified. But Dan, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one other thing, when it comes to certain run concepts, they also have to know who the linemen are and aren't. And I know Bryce is going to know what I'm about to say, but Anthony Bradford, I know it's easy to beat up on him, but like if they're going to have him as a pulling guard, like please stop doing that. Whether it's last week where Walker trips over him or the other week where he just straight whiffs, Bradford running laterally, running parallel to the line of scrimmage is something I do not want to see because it doesn't work. Like,
but haven't you seen his relative athletic score, Mookie? His relative athletic score is
Brandon.
His relative athletic score. He can do it. Look at it. He's got the score.
I feel like we need to get Brandon a shirt that just says that in big bold letters with exclamation points. His RAS matters so much, guys.
RAS matters.
With Bradford's profile.
Yeah, exactly. Bradford's big profile.
Silhouette.
In tiny little letters and below, read the fine print. Do not have this player pull.
Well, Mookie brought up exactly the spot I wanted to touch on with you guys. So I'm glad you brought it up here, Mookie, because it's another one of those issues that he's, it's not going good for you as an offensive lineman when you become a national meme on both Twitter and X. When you've covered both of the two profiles, boy, you are getting some coverage there. Hell, even Instagram's tossed in there. He's liking it in the locker room, halftime. Crazy. So we also have a bit of a weird thing here. We're down a couple picks. This draft, it's got some interesting parts to it, but maybe not the answers there at the interior line that we'd like to see. Probably not going to have free agency available to us for the answers there we'd like to have. Might only be able to address one or the other and maybe neither when this all gets said and done when it comes to center or right guard, which are the two questionable, let's call it, positions of this line as we go forward. Bradford, though, is the one that's got everybody freaking out. And why is he looking back at the quarterback? Why does he keep looking back at the quarterback? So he's under contract, though. Relatively cheap next year. You still have Haynes there, relatively cheap next year. You're going to probably look at spending money in some other places. I'm going around the bend on this one, Dan, because I think we got to set the stage on this one a little bit on. It's not just as an easy a choice of he bad, he got to go, he no fit this offense.
Right.
I'm a little, Mookie was saying back and forth on Walker. I find myself actually a little bit back and forth here on Bradford. So give me the lowdown on where I need to be on this.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's never as easy as fans want it to be, right? They say just go out and get someone. Well, okay. It's not, it doesn't look like at this point, 5 months out, that it's a great offensive line group overall. Certainly not a great interior offensive line group. And plus, Seahawks are tied with the Texans for the youngest offensive line in the league. I don't think the answer to getting them to the next level is to add another rookie to this line. We know the learning curve going from college to the pros. We know how difficult that is. Had Ross Tucker on the show last week. He talked about how difficult that is, that he actually values continuity a little bit more than talent in some cases. I don't think the answer is adding another unproven rookie to that line. Okay, so free agency. Well, John Frashella just put out a list of top 100, what he believes are the top 100 free agents available. 2 of the top 50 are interior linemen. One's Tyler Linderbaum, which is going to probably be a record-setting contract for a center, and the other one's Joel Bitonio. He's down in the 40s. And some people think he's going to retire. So the answer really isn't in free agency. The trade route. Maybe they check back in. They re-engage the Saints about Cesar Ruiz, who played for Kubiak, obviously. Saints need to clear some cap space. They need to acquire picks and commit to a full rebuild. I don't know if they'll be willing to trade him because there's the problem. Good offensive linemen don't get traded because they're hard to find and teams don't want to give up on them. So I think it all depends on what happens in March next year. If they go out and I'd be an advocate for this, and I would argue that you can make it work financially and still get the other things done that you want to. If the Ravens are dumb enough to let Linderbaum to get to free agency, I'm going all in on that guy. That's a transformative player. If you did something like that, you put Tyler Linderbaum at center with Zabel on his side, and you keep the tackles the same. Anthony Bradford's a better player, but between Tyler Linderbaum and Abe Lucas than he is now. Maybe he is still the incumbent. Maybe Bryce Cable dude's ready. Maybe another guy on the roster. my point is just that the answers aren't easy and they're not simple. And I think the biggest improvement from this year to next year is going to be continuity. I had someone tell me yesterday on my show that what they needed to do this offseason was get rid of the center, the right guard, and the right tackle and get all new players there. What are we doing? Yeah. Then we're back to square one. This is the revolving door that we've been dealing with and the carousel we've been on for the last 10 years. Pick one really, really good upgrade at right guard or center, and I think that line takes another jump. Just having another year with Kubiak and Dennison and Benton and all those guys and having them all play together.
Mookie, I saw the pitchfork and torch out as you were talking about Bradford a second ago. So, you know, you've had success over these past couple of years with the change of draft strategy from John Schneider, committing to actually taking offensive linemen to a healthy degree in day 1 and day 2 of the draft. Do you say, hey, I know Haynes, look, let's not run him over the ground too hard for Haynes. 3 out of 4 is pretty nice for day 2 picks, inside of day 2 picks overall, especially the hit rate on the other guys. So do you say stay in this road, or is it try to find the aggressive trade, or does it roll with Bradford another year? Give me your perspective on that one.
Yeah, it's an odd situation because, as mentioned, it's hard to find good interior alignment in free agency, let alone getting a trade. So, like the fact that the Bears got Joe Thuney, and that ended up being great for them, but they obviously had the cap space and they had to pay a pretty penny to get him in terms of the extension they gave him, I believe, not so much the draft capital. Seattle doesn't have the draft capital right now, I think, to make a big swing, and nor should they. I mean, as far as making a big swing for an interior offensive lineman using a first-round pick, for example, I'd be shocked if they did that. But in terms of who's available, you really Cesar Ruiz is kind of it in terms of like the realistic side. I don't think that they're going to go like for Joel Bitonio. Bitonio could retire, and being in Cleveland that long and not winning, I think, can beat you down a lot. And then who mentioned Tyler Linderbaum? If they get a home run at center, I mean, that might kind of change things a bit, because at least that's one position where you go, Sundell and Olu, you've done a good enough job, but the answer is neither. And then you go for somebody who's demonstrably better. But otherwise, if you take a guard early in the draft, let's say the first couple of rounds, you're still kind of restarting and hoping you get another Zabel where they look good plug and play right off the bat. And that's just not normal. Offensive line development is something that takes quite a bit of time. Anthony Bradford, I think, is better than he was in his rookie year, while still not being really good enough to be a guy who's anything other than a weak link in your offensive line. Now, with all that said, multiple coaching staffs have seen him play and decided they are not going to bench him for somebody else. All the calling for Christian Haynes has not been able to win the job over him. And all the calling for him to start Sundell over Bradford, that hasn't been a thing, at least not to this point. So is Bradford a lock for this roster next year? I don't think so. But in terms of the replacement, the odds that the replacement is going to be an immediate upgrade would have to lie in them getting a more established guy, either as a free agent, because of course there will be cap casualties and other things that happen where the free agency market will change, or in the trade market, of which we don't know what the trade market will look like in a few months. But in terms of drafting guys, sure, I think they'll draft another person along the offensive line, but early, I don't expect it. I know Bryce has mentioned before that Cabo Do is somebody they're high on, but ultimately he's only played a handful of snaps in his career. So this is kind of one of those things where I would rather the team move on from Bradford, but I also know it's not like there's going to be a magic fix that is obvious right now, both for this year in terms of saying, okay, just play Haynes or Sundell, and then in the years to come, is it going to be this hotshot rookie? Is it going to be somebody on the roster right now? Is it going to be a splash trade or a free agent signing?
And can I just add one more thing too? Because I think
please.
it's a very popular sentiment. And so I just want to address it, because a lot of fans just think the answer is to go out and draft another guard or another center in the first round. Okay. Well, we know we're going to be drafting at the end of the first round. If you're one of those people, do yourself a favor and just spend some time online looking at the last 7 or 8 drafts in the first round and look at interior offensive linemen. And if you want to get really specific, look at interior offensive linemen drafted between 20 and 32. The bust rate is almost as high as the bust rate for quarterbacks in the first round. Like, there are a ton of guards and centers that have been drafted in the first round that don't finish their rookie contract on the team with the team that drafted them and are kicked to the curb. It's a very, very difficult jump to make, and the hit rate is not good.
Partially because I'm sure, as Bryce will tell with you, in addition to your point, these guys aren't being trained up at that level. It's a lot of guesswork, right? In regards to that, to your point with this, Dan, as to how hard it's to look at these guys and go, he'll project to this, and I know that. And I think he'll project to this. How do you address the Bradford situation, Bryce, here long term? And I love your Linderbaum idea, by the way, Dan. I think if you're talking about number one high-end free, if they're dumb enough to let that guy get to free agency, which I can't think that they're not going to at least franchise him to make sure they keep him in tow. But they're also running into some cap stuff there. They've got some guys they paid too. I'm all over that. But absent that, Bryce, what's your approach to the situation?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think you have to potentially bring this guard group back as it currently stands and see if you can upgrade, because you say you get rid of Bradford, right? And I do believe Bradford, you should upgrade off of him, but it's easier said than done. Like, it's not like, oh, hey, look, there's the chest with all the interior linemen. Let's go pick the one that fits our scheme the best. Like, guys coming out of college, a lot of them don't run this scheme of offense in a run game because it's a very much a pro style, especially the under center. It's different. Like, you can run zone in college and it's out of gun. Well, the timing and everything is completely different from gun to under center, right? The ball is instantly in your quarterback's hands. Your running back's target tracks are different. Everything's different, even for linemen to an extent. And so that's where I think you're seeing the underdevelopment of offensive line play from college, and then these guys struggling. That's why, like, if you're going to go get offensive linemen, you're going to an Iowa, you're going to a Wisconsin, you're going to a lot of these Big Ten schools where they still run some of the under center concepts and stuff. And that's why the Big Ten's always been looked at like kind of the lineman schools to go pick your guys out of, but they're still not producing enough guys for teams to go and get, players out of. And I don't think it's add another rookie. I don't think it's put another top round pick into a rookie and be like, okay, cool. So the entirety of our interior offensive line has less than 5 years starting in the NFL. Your continuity is your biggest factor. Like, continuity is the biggest thing. So having Zabel and Cross together for another year is going to be huge. You're going to probably have a different right guard, but I would bring Bradford back. I'm kind of where you are right now, Brandon, where like I'm off Bradford one week and then I'm back on Bradford another. And I don't know, unless you go out and make a trade for a significant upgrade that you can prove is an upgrade, does it make sense just to jettison him because, he has bad reps here and there, and yeah, they look horrible. I don't disagree, but there's not an easy solution to this question. I'll put it that way. This is one of those ones where we're all sitting there and we're writing on the glass with the white markers, trying to figure out how X over 2 divided by Y over 3 equals we have a starting right guard.
It's
that's
a beautiful mind meme,
Exactly, right? That's exactly what it is right there. We're trying to figure it out. Like, it's not an easy solution.
It is. And it's not going to get better. NIL makes it worse. The transfer portal makes it worse. These 5-star offensive linemen get paid to go to one school, and those guys transfer as much as anyone. So you're getting different coaching, different technique points. And, the answer isn't, Bryce mentioned Iowa. Right. And so I've had so many people tell me, and I've looked into him myself, and I've done some mock drafts where I take him, and that's Jennings Dunker out of Iowa.
Yeah.
He just looks the part. And he's played for Kirk Ferentz, and Kirk Ferentz is the pioneer of the wide zone. I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And so wouldn't that be a plug and play guy? Well, Mason Richmond started for 4 years for Iowa and isn't even ready to be active on game days. And I know that they're shifting him from tackle to guard. But you see my point? Like, that's a guy who did have continuity, stayed at one school for the entire time, played for the godfather of this scheme, and still can't get on the field. There's no guarantee that a guy like Dunker is going to be able to contribute to the level of which we've seen Gray Zabel contribute as a rookie.
You might have had me with everybody else. I don't know Dunker though. Yeah, he's way more athletic than Richmond by about
the red mullet is pretty hard to deny. Yeah.
I mean, well, and it still doesn't mean that you're not wrong. By the way, you touched on one guy that I actually is one of my few.
Player to like. He's an
easier player to like, and it's. I think with him, he's not going to have the lateral foot speed to hold up as a right tackle and pass pro. So he's going to have to be kicked, I think, into guard. And then I love the athleticism and the pad level he plays with already naturally to then get kicked into guard. Richmond was a big, tall Frankenstein mother effer out there. It was a lot of,
the stable of this draft class, right?
Yeah. But it still is an issue here that you touch upon, because there's another package point to this. I'm not trying to elongate this, guys, but I think, Mookie, you got something you want to add too. But the other aspect of this is scheme fit.
And I'm looking at these prospects early on. I don't know if you guys are getting the same flavor on this one. But I'm going, okay, that guard, zone scheme, movement, this guard, he's got some heavy feet. Those feet are really in mud. You know, are you getting this too?
They keep mocking the kid from Penn State to us, and he's not his own guy.
No, he's not.
I just go, I don't. And so then I started doing, you mentioned Dunn. That's why I love that you picked up dunkers. I'm like, I'd like to kick Fano in there. I wouldn't mind moving the Miami kid on inside if I could kick him in there. That wouldn't be too bad. But I think that those guys are probably going to do enough to be tackles, and you're not going to be able to. So we come down to, find the athletic fit that's also good enough to be in the scheme, and then the early downs as well in addition to it. It's kind of the collection. Mookie, did you have something you were at?
No, I'm just responding to people in the comments.
And again, this is my opinion. John Schneider might feel much differently, because if you do go with another young guy, it's a way to keep your salary cap in check, right? It's a way, if you're going to go cheap on that interior, it allows you to do some other things. So, we'll get more answers in March when we see their approach to free agency.
It is nice to at least have it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it is. But like, to your point, Brandon, like, I think for the way the zone scheme that they want to run it and the way that it's designed to be run, the guards, when I look at this draft class, I'm sitting there and I'm going, there's maybe like 2 that are actually listed as guards that I'd be comfortable saying, hey, you could step in and compete with Anthony Bradford to run out of the tunnel week 1, 2026 as our starting right guard. You have more likelihood of taking a tackle and putting them inside. But then your point that you just made is some of those tackles that you think, yeah, I can slide them in. Teams are probably going to look at them and be like, no, they're a tackle, so we're going to draft them higher than they should be because they're a tackle. Like, this draft class, it's not that it's a bad draft class for this. It's just a draft class that there isn't a lot of opportunity for you to get what you need in this if you're the Seahawks in some respects.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess my final point on this would be that the silver lining is when you're drafting at the end of the first round, that's usually a pretty good sweet spot for interior offensive linemen. Those guys usually don't go much higher than that. Where they took Zabel last year is kind of the sort of the cutoff to where they usually start going. Tyler Booker went 12th, but that was a little higher than expected. So, if they do approach things differently in March and they take care of, some of their other needs in free agency, maybe there will be an opportunity.
It's hard to
get 32. So, I mean,
by that point, that best lineman's off the board. It just doesn't feel like Zabel was last year's Graham Barton. And there doesn't feel like there's the lineage of that this year for that particular pick in that particular spot. I know we kind of picked it earlier on with where Barton went the prior year to Tampa Bay, but same kind of to me situation of that guy that could be maybe a little bit of a, guard. Is he a center? Solid floor to the guy. You feel like you can get in there and probably go right from the jump. And I don't know if that's gonna be there. Let's put a bow. I know we got a little bit off the stretch of this, but we've kind of put together a little bit of an offensive game plan that I want to kind of just hit the target items really quickly as I kind of remember them, bring them up, and then see if you've got some guys additions on what you think are a necessity in this game plan from the offensive side of the ball for Seattle and what they must do on this Rams attack. So heavy running inside, and we've kind of been to a consensus on this as I've kind of taken a poll. You guys can correct me on this if I'm wrong with this, but a fairly heavy amount of inside run. But like Bryce says, you got to mix something to the edges out there, challenge those corners that don't want to tackle to make them tackle a little bit, but lean into passing a little bit heavier from an offensive perspective. Work a little bit, not of the screen game traditionally. We know that that's going nowhere, but a little bit like shock screens out in space and throws out into the flat and whatnot like that. Work the short passing attack of the Niners that they implemented a lot of ways, a back foot Sam, hit it and go. Is there anything else you guys have? Because I think that's a pretty good attack just in the general nature. And I think you can just keep hitting that spam button of hitting that, because that's what the Niners did. It's just back foot, have a predestined play where you're going to go. They're going to be in off coverage a lot of times. I think it was Mookie you mentioned about the off coverage, or Brian can't remember, on hitting that off coverage, reading it, and then having the automatic trigger of an out route there that you can call upon. I mean, that's what teams did on Carroll's defense for years. It wasn't that Shanahan was walking up there with an out route called. They'd have off coverage and they go, oh, they're playing cover 3 deep. Just run the out route in front of them. And the Rams will do that same sort of stuff with their corners at times because they're not the most talented guys in the world, right? They're all right, but they ain't next level. So is there something else, Dan, I'll start with you on this, a place that you would think is a key addition here to this offensive attack?
I think just in the most general sense that I can state it, just be unpredictable. I know we always talk during the bye week about self-scouting, right? And going back and taking a look at your own team and what your tendencies are so you can identify those and stay away from those. Well, just do a quick refresher now this week, right? And look back over the last few weeks and see what your tendencies are, because it feels like some teams are starting to get dialed into some of the things that we do. For all the talk that we heard during camp and everything else from the offensive players about how the way that they coach everything is the first step always looks the same, so the defense doesn't know what's coming depending on formation or what have you. Just be unpredictable, right? Like Bryce said, like I think we were, at least for a little while, we were recently number one in the league at how many times we ran the ball on 2nd and 10 after an incomplete pass on first down. Like, stop doing that. Right? Don't do something that the Rams have seen on tape. So be unpredictable. Maybe throw tempo in once in a while. I don't think they do that often enough, but when they do at the end of a half or in a game winning type situation, Sam's been pretty good. We saw it against the Rams. We saw it again on Sunday against the Colts at the end of the half and at the end of the game. So just kind of be unpredictable that way and switch things up, and don't. And if there's that little section of plays, and I always hope for this, and Bryce as a coach, you can tell me if this happens or not. Maybe at the NFL level, you can't afford this luxury. But if you have just that little chunk of 6 or 7 plays that you've been saving, it's tucked away in your play sheet down in the corner that you've been saving for the Rams, maybe roll that out this week.
Love it. Mook, I love the up-tempo stuff in general too, by the way, just great. I mean, he is that kind of quarterback that does seem to feel a little more comfortable at times, especially when he's in a bit of a, he's kind of having a morose day. It's a little bit, it seems to kind of snap him out of it at times when he gets into those situations. Russ was like that too. Mookie, anything you've got on their offensive game plan, top this one off?
I think they need to they need to commit to play action more proactively, because a common theme with the Colts and Falcons games the last 2 weeks, Sam didn't look great in the first half. The passing game was off its game. And then the second half, I know they were kicking field goals a bunch in the Colts game, but they were at least moving the ball. I think they only punted once on 4 or 5 possessions. I'm not going to count the kneel down as a possession. So they were moving the ball consistently with the passing game. And you know what happened? They called more play action. So Kubiak has been doing this thing where it's straight drop back passing and then using the run game early to maybe set up play action. You do not need to run the ball a bunch to set up play action. You don't even need to run the ball well to have a good play action game, as evidenced by the fact that Sam Darnold, albeit narrowly, is still number 1 in the league by EPA per dropback in play action passing. And we know that the Seahawks run game is not very good. What's the difference between Kubiak and, I have to reference him, Ryan Grubb, is that Kubiak, I think, has done a pretty good job of marrying the play action game and the run game together, whereas Ryan Grubb did 2 sins. One, he didn't marry those well, gave up too many tells that we could pick up on. So what do you think professional coaches could do? And then the second bit is wouldn't commit to running the ball at all. So like it's one thing if you're not running the ball well. If you're not even trying to run the ball, why should I respect your play action game or respect your run game? So I think they need to be more proactive in doing play action stuff, roll out Sam more often. So that means more bootlegs, move the pocket, and you can still do your throws out in the flat. I remember in the first Rams game that Kenneth Walker hit an explosive play just off of a play action boot, and Walker, you just take the dump off and get yards after catch off of that. So what's been consistent for the Seahawks is when they are not running play action at a high rate, Darnold is not as effective, and therefore the passing game is not as effective. And that includes the first Rams game. Now, I know there's some context that they were trailing so much that they had to do a lot of passing and 4-minute offense, but even still, in the flow of the game, they were not running a lot of PA stuff. So I think that they need to adjust to that and fast, pass to set up the run, if anything. If you're going to get your running game involved, instead of this run to set up the pass early and then see if things can open up for your run game. So you can hit your little 4-6 yard plays, and hopefully they become a little bit bigger down the line. Somebody in the comments is saying, please no trick plays this game. I know that Cooper Kupp wants to throw a touchdown against his former team. Clint's been good with not doing that trick play stuff. I think the last straw was the Cooper Kupp pick in the Houston game. But yeah, that is basically my biggest play action wrinkle is go against your recent habits and start to rely more on what you're best at early in games, as opposed to waiting until halftime when you've scored 6 points to go, let's go back to what we do best.
I think I know what Bryce is going to say next.
Well, and I like where you're at too with the unpredictability, just to pair it back to with Dan on that. that you're been running on early downs. You've been predictable in that a little bit. I'd even say first down's been a little bit like that. There's some games you're a little bit more willing to throw first downs. Being able to pass a little bit more rather than run on those downs, you go counter to that a little bit with the Rams and could find some success there with it. So I think a solid addition up on that. Bryce, what does Dan think you got there on your?
I'm curious. I want to hear what Dan thinks I'm going to say first and see if he's on the money here.
This is the week to bring Milroe back.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't it be freaky if Milroe was activated tomorrow? Like we wake up and it's like Milroe activated. Oh,
Jet sweep pass to Jalen Milroe is the opener for this tomorrow night.
Seriously, right out the chute. Yeah, not make us wait, just right from the jump.
Oh man,
that's great.
Okay, so Dan, Mookie, you guys covered a lot. My biggest thing for this offense is, I think Clint Kubiak, don't burn your best dishes. And the reason I say that is Clint, in the last 2 times he has played somebody that knows what he likes to do or how his offense is built, he tries to do things completely out of character for that team, and it sets up troubles. Sam throwing the ball 44 times in a close football game that didn't need to happen. You look back to the 49ers game. Let's, bail out on certain things that we were expecting our team to do, and let's throw it all over the yard again. Like, stay within the confinements of what you do well. It helps protect Sam, which you're trying to do to an extent, from creating, extra opportunities for interceptions to happen or fumbles by doing everything Dan and Mookie said. And Clint Kubiak, just don't try and outthink the other team. Just do what works, stay with it, trust it. And for God's sakes, if we start with the ball inside the 10-yard line, do not run 3 straight drop backs and get Sam killed. That drives me absolutely bonkers. It's driven me bonkers since the Texans game. Don't do that, and I think we'll have a successful offensive recipe.
I love it. Well, Dan, since you opened this Pandora's box, let's do a what if. And I know you guys, we're gonna be later, guys. Lock in. It's a first round seed time. We got a situation tomorrow. We wake up, it's Thursday. Oh my God, the weather's shifted. Mother Nature's gonna piss all over us. It's gonna be incessant rain, wind. Nobody offensively is going to be able to move something. Look, I know this sounds out, but this is within contention, right? We know the Pacific Northwest weather can turn on a dime. Do you potentially, in case of glass, break Milroe?
Well, in that case, no, because I think ball security is a concern with Milroe, right? That's where the small hands come into play. That's what I think he's had some fumbling issues at Alabama. That's the last guy that I want to hand the ball to. If we wake up tomorrow and the forecast shifts and it's going to piss rain the entire game, I'm activating Robbie Utes. I don't know what happened next week. I don't know what that was all about, or even in a grander scheme, like what the Utes usage has been about this year. I thought that was supposed to be a bigger part of this offense. And I'm lining up in I formation, and I'm making Charbonnet my lead back, and I'm pounding the ball between the tackles.
I just think he hasn't run blocked very well.
I'm going to say this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm breaking Robbie Utes' glass, and I'm making him into Mike Allstott. The O train up the gut. That is literally what I'm going with. Yep. Okay. Robbie Utes right behind him, and we're going right down. We're running in the gap, Brandon. We're going A on each side. We're going right down.
Hey, we'll get a couple yards. That's all I need. I just need to get in those 3rd and 4s, man. I want to live in 3rd and 4 tomorrow. That's where I want to be.
Mason Richardson, 6th offensive lineman, Utes in the back. Yeah, I like
that's it. Right.
Just adopt the wing T at that point. Just go to the wing T. We're fine. Just go to the wing T.
When are we ever going to get a touchdown to an eligible offensive lineman? Like Jeffrey Simmons, eligible defensive lineman, caught a touchdown against the 49ers last week. Like, we need to have a big fella offensive touchdown. Like, that's a trick play I can get behind, because normally those guys are wide open if the trick play works, as opposed to please do not throw to a covered guy. I know we had George Fant catch a couple passes early. He caught that one pass and then fell all over himself as he was going to get a first down. But in terms of a big fella touchdown, like, we're still missing that. Byron Murphy scored, I think, a touchdown in the playoff against Washington as a fullback. Yeah. He can get the ball that way. But Robbie Utes is an interesting case, because they're not very effective in terms of getting explosive runs when he's been in the game recently. But I saw enough of Brady Russell last week to go, if Utes is not going to be active, do not play Russell at fullback. It's either go no fullback or play Utes. And I think that Utes is still kind of adjusting to the fact that he went from this big tight end to fullback. But if he is going to play, they need to kind of like be careful as to what they do as far as him being in the game, because I think they've also had too many tells with him and the shifts in the I formation. It kind of gives away what side of the ball they're running. And oftentimes Oots ends up blowing a couple of blocks. So I think that he's not been great in recent weeks, but he's certainly better than the alternative, which was the Brady Russell he's a special teamer for a reason.
I'm still hopeful for him too, Dan. I just think that that's what the tapes told this year, is that him in the hole has not been consistent anywhere close as far as sustaining. He's been part of that problem of guys slipping off blocks, outside zone, that type of stuff. He gets out there, and Callerup actually has been to the other side of that. That's what a little bit of this is. I know Sundell's kind of the guy that's talked about as him or Sundell. Sundell's more of the special teams contributor, but I think it's that blocking side that they get. I think some of this is a little bit maybe cascading to, I think Barner's had a little bit of a shoulder thing going on. He's wearing that brace, and that makes me wonder about the potential of him, why the run blocking has gone backwards a little bit with them. And if they're not trying to think of this with Saubert coming back of, okay, Saubert and Callerup are our two tight end blockers, and Callerup kind of into the fullback role when we want to run those plays, with Sundell mixed in there as kind of a mix. And then Barner becomes your H-back tight end down the stretch. I'm kind of going to be looking to see if they do that sort of transition here, if that's what is going on with Barner. I don't know that it is, but you noted the blocking. It's been a little bit weird that it's not been up to snuff.
I mean, they could also just troll the heck out of Sean McVay and roll out some 13 personnel tomorrow night.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Go Saubert, Callerup, Barner, eat it.
Hey, 13 personnel in bad conditions. Somebody could say, there are people out there that said that's peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you want to do rather than spread it out and go 4 wide, that you want to go more bigger and mash and embrace the mash, embrace the kind of the short way of it and control the clock. A lot of tomorrow's going to be controlling the clock. Thursday night game, short week, body's tired. These offenses are going to play probably hyper conservative to a degree, in my opinion. And that's going to mean you got to kind of embrace those 3 yards. That's a beautiful result for us tomorrow. Let's flip this over to the defensive side of the ball. I think that this is more going to be of us saying, hey, just keep the Orin the same way you ored last time, kind of just apply in mass production. But I guess let's start this out. Dan, can you do that? Or is McVay too smart of a coach that I can't run back out and trot back out the same stuff we were trying to do in the last game? Or maybe your opinion might be that he just missed getting us. Like, if he had just stayed committed to the run, considering the yard per carry average with their main running back, would have been fine. If they just hadn't gone to Blake Corum instead and took him off, they would have been fine. Where are you at with that one?
I trust Mike Macdonald and the way he's dialing things up these days to switch it up and have a good game plan and give them a completely different look. I mean, that's the whole thing about this defense anyway, right? From one snap to the next is they don't give you tells. They don't let you know what they're doing. Plus, Julian Love didn't play in the first match, and was it Emanwari's first game back, or was it his first game back? So he wasn't.
No.
Or was it
back for a bit?
He came back again in the Arizona game before.
It was Ernest
Darren Reed
Jones'
was on
first
IR.
game back.
It was Ernest Jones came back for that game and then missed the next week. So it wasn't a fully healthy. It wasn't 100% Ernest Jones. And it wasn't the Nick Emanwari that we've seen the last couple of weeks either. I think he's much more comfortable, and Mike Macdonald's much more comfortable with him, and they're moving him around doing things that are different even than what the Rams saw 4 weeks ago. I think Reek Woolen's playing at a higher level now. I think that was maybe kind of when he started the turnaround. It was right after the trade deadline, right? When things started to kind of click for him. I think it's a better defense than the one they faced in week 11. So as long as Mike's making the calls and has a good plan dialed up, I think he's going to make it tough on him. I think the score is going to be relatively similar to what it was week 11. I think it's going to be in the low 20s. Yeah.
I like it. Let me get over to you on that, Mookie and Bryce. Real quick, though, I'm forgetting and burying. We got to do a little quick ad read here because contractually obligated, which is going to be Sleeper. Sleeper is the number one app running right now today in the game. Why? Because they got so many options and so many choices. A lot more than a lot of the other apps out there, and they are sponsoring both me and right now Dan's show. So if you use my code NEST or Dan's code
Forever,
they will give you a match up to 100% of your first deposit up to $100. So $100 from me and Dan to you, and you support the channels at the very same time. They also have just a free $20 entry, no deposit needed. Just create a login, and they will throw $20 into your account. So that's $120 from us to you through the Sleeper app, just using the code NEST or
Forever.
I'm trying to keep you on your toes over there, Dan. And we got my picks here over on the other side of it. Terms and conditions to apply. Please see their site for details. Gentlemen, do you like my picks? Myers with more than a field goal and a half. Shahid with over 34.5 yards. Charbonnet with 35.5 yards because downhill running, baby. Kyron Williams with over 55.5 yards, and Puka with his 39 targets in this game, over 94.5 yards.
I admire your restraint in not taking the freebie that they were offering of Sam Darnold over.
Freebies are for cowards.
Over.
Dan. Freebies are for cowards.
It was over half a yard passing.
Oh, yeah. I missed it. That's why I didn't include it. So, see, folks, it gets even better when you use the app. They give you 3 freebies on top of it.
That's right.
We all feeling my picks, boys? We good with these?
I like them.
Yeah,
let's go.
I like the only thing I think that could actually happen is Nakua under 94.5. I think
That's what I was going to
without-
say too.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys thinking
Okay.
we're doubling, or you just think we're locking him down?
No, we get four big pass plays called back for OPI.
Ah. Nice.
I just
Well, Mookie,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead, Bryce. Pop it
I
up.
was just going to say the reason I think, to Mookie's point, why it'll be the under is the weather's going to play a factor. And I think the fact that Devontae's not out there. Like Devontae Adams, even though he's not Devontae Adams circa Packers, he still demands guys to be eyeing him, and it opens up some of that stuff for Puka Nacua. I just think now that he's not there, and I think Witherspoon and Woolen are playing as one of the 2 top tandems right now in the NFL when they're both on the field. It's not like you can run Puka to the other side and be like, okay, he's over there on the weaker corner and we can take advantage of that. Like, he's going to have a problem all game. I think there's a higher chance that a tight end on their roster has more receiving yards.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it. Mookie, where are you at on this with this defense and what they should do? And is it just kind of wash, rinse, repeat, make them stop them until they prove they can stop it with your style and your approach from what you did last time?
Well, it's going to be a different matchup by default because you're not going to have Adams on the Rams side. I don't remember if Higbee even played in the first game. He might have. Yeah, he definitely did. So he's not back. Havenstein's not back. So they're going to have some changes there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Seahawks will have Julian Love. He didn't play in that game, as Dan mentioned. Jaron Reed also didn't play. I'm going to leave out Riley Mills because, I think everybody, including Riley himself, admitted that was a pretty tough debut for him to be going, for the most part, opposite Quentin Nelson your first game, coming off a torn ACL. I think part of what the coaching staff did in this Colts game, bless you, Bryce. I know you muted yourself, but I know what you did. But anyway, I think part of what they did with the Colts game is pseudo load management by even having Mills play in the first place and then having Mike Morris in the game in the second quarter, like taking some snaps away from some of the starters to keep them quote unquote fresher for the Thursday game. And I guess it worked out in the end. But yeah, you have your key guys back. You have everybody back who is supposed to be on your roster in week 1. So I think that the Rams are not going to be heavy on 13 personnel set because Seattle snuffed that out the first time. I am curious to see about this run defense, though, because they've been very, very good. But they have been leaking kind of not necessarily explosives, but these 4, 5, and 8 yard gains where they're preventing the big runs from happening, but they're also setting up favorable down and distances. And that's what kept the Colts kind of in a position where, yeah, they weren't exactly moving the ball all over the place, but they were controlling the clock that way. So in the Rams game in the first meeting, they definitely had trouble stopping the run early. And I am a little bit worried about that because the Rams offensive line is amazing with run blocking. Kyron Williams is playing well. He's also not fumbling as much. And Blake Corum is also starting to get more comfortable in the offense. So I think this is going to be, to me, a bigger test of the Seahawks run defense than their pass defense. And the game script may dictate how often the Rams will run the ball. But if it's a case where they are in position to keep at it with their run game, I really want to see if the Seahawks can hold up. And I think they can. I mean, Byron Murphy's been playing out of his mind lately. He's not getting the stats lately, but the way he's taken on double teams has been phenomenal. Leonard Williams, of course, has been fantastic. And Jaron Reed, now that he's back in the rotation, remains an important piece on this defensive line. Another thing that I am looking for in terms of the pass defense is Josh Jobe has not been great the last couple of weeks. And even though Nacua is kind of the only receiver you have to really pay close attention to, I think Arinka would be playing Reek more snaps than Jobe. Reek has been playing at such a high level lately. And you notice that they're not bringing up Reek's name on the broadcast. That's normally a good thing. Other than the taunting penalties, which I don't care about, just don't get one tomorrow. But other than the taunting penalties that we're seeing occasionally, he's locking his guys down. He's tackling better. So I think playing Reek more would strengthen this defense. But in general, only two teams have been really, I guess three, have been able to shut this Rams offense down. The Ravens somehow, and that was sloppy conditions. The Texans on opening day, and they're right up there with Seattle's best defense in the league. And then the Seahawks themselves. 21 points scored in that first meeting. Two of them were off very short fields. So I think that Macdonald knows how to stymie this Rams offense. And I'm confident that, as Dan said, this is going to be a lower scoring game. So I don't remember what the over-under is, maybe like 43.5. I'd be leaning toward the under for this one.
Yeah, I think so. And I think with heavy amount of runs on top of it, that's going to just shorten down this game, and it's going to make those possessions that much more valuable as you do get them. One thing I do want to see as a carryover from my perspective on this is that this is the number one play action team in the league by percentage, being this Rams team. And what I really liked about it, and this is the part that does make me nervous, to your point, Mookie, about the run defense and the shakiness of it, because I do wonder if early on this game this contributed to it, where you said, all right, we're going to take the unblocked edge that would normally be scraping down the line of scrimmage to be pursuit backside of the play. He now just takes the quarterback and operates like it's a play action fake every time on the boot. And great, you had a guy in Stafford's face and you killed a lot of plays DOA on arrival the second he turned around off the play action of that. But that's also one less guy for already what is a light box. So you're going from 6 to 5 now when you choose to do that, because you're letting the quarterback essentially eliminate that edge in the run game. Do you guys feel like, hey, this is the risk we've got to take to eliminate that play action, or is this a little bit of a shaky strat by Seattle? Because it has kind of carried over afterwards here through some of the other corresponding games on film.
I think it's a shaky maneuver there by Macdonald, because as an OC, if I know going to film that's how you're going to play and you've been showing it, I'm going to have some wrinkles of some things that are going to basically, with Sean McVay, have the counter to your counter. If you're so worried about me getting the ball out quick, cool, maybe we aren't booting as much now, and that you're bringing to shoot out. And because when ends do that, they tend to stay out wider. Okay, well, now we can run counter underneath. Now we can run split zone, run it backside underneath, or even if for Stafford, I'd run a half and pull a lineman back across, or a tight end, and have him set up outside and have Stafford just slide up underneath and potentially get that deeper overshot off the play action. And I got a feeling McVay is going to have that, because one thing Sean McVay is an awesome designer of is that over route. He kills you with it in so many variations, and we've seen it time in and time out. And I love what Macdonald's doing, but don't get married to something. If Stafford gets out a couple of times on the edge, he's not much of a running threat. If he's going to take off and run, great. You rally to the ball because you're probably the fastest defense in the NFL anyways. And trust your guys that are in coverage, especially now that you got Julian Love back there.
Mookie, how about where are you at with that? Stay with the strat, drive it down, or just, like he's saying, maybe kind of vary it up a little bit from the first matchup? It's there, but be careful because McVay is going to adjust.
Yeah, that's what makes this a great chess match, because McVay is this masterful offensive mind, and he's earned his reputation. Like some of these guys who get prematurely crowned geniuses, Bobby Sloak being one of them with the Houston Texans, whereas McVay has got the ring, he's got all the other success to show it across multiple quarterbacks. But I think I'd be surprised if they stayed the course, because I expect McVay to adjust. I just don't want them to panic in case the Rams start to get their run game going early. I mean, what happened in the first game is the run game did bother Seattle significantly. There was that 4th and 1 explosive with Kyron Williams. There was another one with, I think, Corum. And then they shut them down the rest of the way. But I don't know how much of that was the fact that the Rams also didn't run a lot of plays, because the Seahawks had no issue getting a lot of plays in the second and third quarters. They just weren't turning them into touchdowns. So maybe there would have been a different story if the Rams actually had more snaps. And the short fields also meant that they ran so few plays to begin with, because they were well on pace to break Seattle's 100-yard rusher streak. I think it was Kyron Williams who had 91, so that's as close as anybody's gotten lately. But I think that's for Macdonald, it'll be interesting to see how aggressive he wants to be in terms of how many guys he wants to put on the line of scrimmage, because in this last game with the Colts, they were pretty conservative. But I don't think that he would necessarily do the same thing in this matchup. I'm also wondering what is going to be Brandon Peely's role in this defense, because he only played 5 snaps on Sunday. And given that he's a run stuffer, and they just kind of like didn't even have him as much of a factor in stopping Jonathan Taylor. But in this game, especially knowing how much the Rams like to go heavy, I think that we could see more of Peely as being a kind of a sneaky important factor, especially when the Rams are running inside. So, yeah, that is kind of like one of my things to watch as far as what happens tomorrow night with this run game of the Rams, because they are what I want the Seahawks to be. And I want it. Christmas is next week, but I can't have it.
Or can you? Well, Dan, Mookie's pushing this forward to where I wanted to ask you on this question from this angle of it, which is that, okay, yes, do you want to stay with what you've done potentially? As Bryce said, careful on McVay being predictable. You have really held back running as much base package stuff this year, and that you've lived in nickel in the ways that you have. Is this the week to maybe try to throw McVay a curveball with a little bit more base packages, a little bit more of the heavier defensive fronts than what you've tried out prior?
I think it makes sense. A lot of the narrative going into the first game was how was, the Seahawks nickel base going to match up with the 13 personnel, right? And that they weren't going to vary from it. And they were going to stick to their core principles and just rely on their gap integrity, right? And filling their run lanes and everything else, even though they were outweighed up front. The Rams made a clear shift a couple of years ago to go bigger and heavier on the offensive line, go to more of a gap scheme, try to push people back. I trust him to be able to continue to do that, but we know that as you guys have pointed out, that McVay will have a counter to that. What I'm more curious to see is, and it's hard to sack Matt Stafford at this point in his career. He's just so good at getting rid of the ball. They didn't get him in the first game. They only hit him 3 times, but they have to. He's only been sacked 18 times this entire season. They have to affect him. They have to influence his arm angles. They have to influence his decisions and plays and just not make it easy on him. They weren't able to do that really in the first meeting. And so I expect in that respect, I expect Macdonald to have something different dialed up and ready for him, and some different looks that maybe they're not ready for or haven't seen yet to try and get some pressure on him.
Makes a lot of sense. And it was at least good on the rollouts, but you're right. Absent that, you had a little bit of a struggle getting there, to him. He's such a smart quarterback and how he operates. And it's going to be very interesting how this rolls. We got a couple donos here. Let's catch up on this first. Matthew, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Welcome aboard here on this. Let me get you guys so you don't look ridiculous with that thing on right now. Thank you though. Brent, he loves the meteorologist Dan. He says, I trust, and thank you for the $2 donation, Doppler Dan.
It's
I
the
trust him
update.
too, oddly enough.
The rain is being pushed back. Maybe it was at halftime, maybe. So it looks like they might have to deal with some precipitation in the first half.
Dan filling Poole's very large shoes. He's doing it right now. Steve Poole's very large shoes. Dan's filling them in right now. But thank you though, Brent. Appreciate you for that donation. Feed me more Seahawks. Thank you for 22 months as a Hawks Nest member. This is off topic question between the 4 of you. Who's the nice one, scary one, funny one, the smart one? Mookie is obviously the scary one in my opinion. I was going to go smart one there, but
so was I.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think
He's like
Mookie gets
encyclopedia. I think that's an easy one.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever been described as scary before. And then I asked that person in the comments, and it said, because I haven't been smiling much of the show. Well, is this a big enough smile for you?
We got Dan. Who's the nice one? Who's the scary one? Who's the funny one?
I don't think any of us are scary. I guess I'll take one for the team. I'm the oldest guy. I do catch myself having old man tendencies more now. I do have my yelling at the kids to stay off my lawn moments. My fiance loves to point those moments out to me. I'll just take the scary one title just to take one for the team so you guys don't have to wear it.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Bryce, any thoughts on this one?
Oh, if I had to give us all 4, I'd go Mookie the smart one. I'd go Dan the funny one. I'd go Brandon's the nice one, and I'd probably go the scary one because I'm the largest individual out of us all.
There we go. There you go. The most physically imposing of the 4
You're the
here.
mean coach on the sideline, right?
I like that. Let's go with that.
Okay. All right.
Randall McDaniel in the house dropping a triple stack on us. Thank you for that, Randall, with a couple questions here and some things. He said, Randall predicted in August we would re-sign Bradford. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying, setting the stage for you guys for this. We might have to start making our peace with this thing being a reality into next year. Dan, you talked and made some good points about the changeover and also just holding in the perspective. The thing that we didn't talk about this is that this is a Super Bowl team we're looking at next year. This isn't can they ascend and be a happy story, a little Cinderella? It's more of, all right, boys, this S is real right now. Lock in. It ain't the time for rooks and guys who green and wet behind the ears to get out there and, let's go. You know what I mean? Let's go.
Yeah, and I know earlier I kind of set the stage and talked about how difficult it is to go find those upgrades. But the fact of the matter is we've seen this organization, and certainly since Mike Macdonald has arrived on scene, when they identify a problem, they go out and fix it, and they aggressively address it. And to your point earlier, Brandon, you can't fix the entire offensive line in one offseason. That wasn't going to happen. The improvement's significant, it's substantial, and it's real. But I think every single move that they make this offseason, whether they win the Super Bowl this year or not, is going to be with one question in mind, and that is, how do we get there? How does this move help us win a Super Bowl? And you gotta ask yourself some hard truths. And if they don't believe that Anthony Bradford and Jalen Sundell are good enough to get them there, then they'll address it.
Mm-hmm. He did say resign. He didn't put a dash in there. So with Bradford in August.
He's just gonna hang him up.
It's possible there, Randy, and good points there. Randall, also, thank you for the $2 donation. I think this is a Sweezy joke. Draft a 6-year senior defensive tackle from Temple and move him to guard. Yeah, it got weird with Cable at the end. I think Cable just did not have the adjustment pattern set to kind of counter the rule changes that were in place to make his system work, and it left him desperate and just reaching for whatever he could to try to find fits. You guys, would you see it the same way?
The spark gods.
Who was it?
The spark gods. That's right. SPARQ.
Christian Sokoley, right? Is that how
Christian Sokoley, starting center one of their years, I think. Yeah, Drew Nowak.
Oh, that's what I was about to say, Brandon. Drew Nowak, the left-handed center. That was opening day versus the Rams, and we couldn't do anything.
As frustrating as I get with this offensive line, thank God at least John finally stopped 3 years ago messing about with this, because it was awful with the drafting and the targeting, and then drafting a center in college and then moving him to guard, and you're ripping your hair out going, what are we doing here? And finally you've at least put the investment in, and it's a process, like Dan just said, but we're moving so much further along the path than we were back then, where it was like literally guys who should not be playing in the NFL, much less starting across the board. Also, Randall, thank you for another $2 donation. Says, get ball in Charb's hand 20 times. He's the better back. We'll go quickly around the room here. Who's the better back, Dan? Walker or Charbonnet?
Kalani.
Mookie.
I think it's Walker, but if either of those backs is carrying the ball 20 times, Michael Dixon's probably punting a lot. So,
ooh,
that's funny. When you first put the comment up, I had the exact opposite thought. If Charbonnet's carrying it 20 times, it's probably going pretty well for us.
I think, if you're getting 20 carries for a running back, you're controlling the ball, you're getting third down conversions, because you're not going to be in a position to do that. Say nothing of if you get behind in the game, you're going to have to pass a lot. So it does mean also that you're probably getting some kind of commitment to run. It's probably a good sign in that way. But I'm more Walker. Bryce, where are you out on this? This is another great debate right now in the Hawk fandom, where there's people going back and forth. You see it week in and week out. I'm sure you guys do too. It has to put a smile on your face, where it's like Walker goes off this week and you get them going, see, it's Walker. We got to be doing this 24. And then Charbonnet comes back a week and see, it's Sharp time. Sharp-Izard. It's like, it's wild to watch. You're getting it too, Mookie, out there on field goals? Are you seeing it too in the comments? Like,
oh God, it's every week. It's Walker or Charbonnet. This is the downside of taking running backs in the second round 2 years in a row and not having a line that's good enough to block for either.
I don't want to do this ever again. We got to. It both proved it on an analytical level and from a conversational debate level that goes on between the fans at that point too. It just hasn't helped matters on any accounts. Like, get the line right, get the scheme right. Have a defense that's not going to have you behind in games so you can stay committed to the run. All the analytical stuff they say that you take to need a ground game. And then if you've taken care of all of that, then you can go get the fancy pants running back. You know what I mean? Like, are you guys kind of the same place at this point? I feel like this has been proven. We tried this grand experiment out and it's been proven. It's hardlined.
Yeah, I tried to justify it at the time because I liked the players.
Me too.
But yeah, hindsight being 2020, you look at just the right philosophical way to build a roster, and it wasn't the right time.
Bryce,
give me Jacardier right.
Yeah.
Hey, he's the prototype for this outside zone offense. I'm just saying that's that's a Shanahan running back.
Starting running back 2026. We've got Cam Akers and Jacardier right in the backfield.
Who
Well,
wants to
and I'm
donate
over
to me
here.
with
I'm
Mr.
over here,
Kenny
Billis
McIntosh?
Jones. I'm Billis
hey,
Jones all day over
run all
here.
them back. Walker, Charbonnet, go off. Give us Akers, give us Wright, give us Jones, and we'll be fine.
And then Bryce,
Oh, God.
Bryce, then you're not going to take Jonah Coleman in the second round.
Oh, that's a hard one, but I'll have to see what he looks like at Senior Bowl. I'll tell you after Senior Bowl how I feel about that.
Okay.
Well, who was saying here in the chat today, or who was saying here in the thing about needing just the inside runner that can just get you the Chris Carson? I think it was you, Mookie.
Yeah.
Like I was going to say after you said that, I was going to say, so you're saying we got to go get Jonah Coleman. Was going to basically be my answer on that after you said that. It was like, well, there you go grab him. And that's kind of who he is and what he would do. So, not the worst of ways to go. He's got a floor to him. I don't know where the ceiling's at, but there's a floor at least he can be a grind. Am I right, guys? And he can be a grinder, can he?
Yeah. Yeah, I even think, there's not a lot available in free agency, but I feel like Tyler Algier, who is available in free agency, is kind of what we hoped Zach Charbonnet would be. Like he doesn't dilly-dally, he doesn't hesitate. He picks a lane and he hits the hole hard. And if there's nothing there, he just pushes the pile as hard as he can get. And if he does find a crease, he's got a little bit of juice. He can get to the second level. Probably not going to be super expensive. I mean, if you're looking for a guy that fits this scheme and would be a good complementary back anyway, that could be one option.
When you look at the history of this scheme and you go back to, the Denver Broncos of the 90s with Kubiak and Shanahan, you had Davis. Okay, Davis is the anomaly, Terrell. But then you had other guys follow behind that in Mike Anderson and other guys that were just kind of put your foot in the ground, read your target, but they were explosive within 10 yards. That was the key. They had a great 10-yard explosiveness. They weren't guys that were going to burn down the field. But then you look at when it goes to Houston and you get Arian Foster. Arian Foster wasn't some speed demon. He was just fast within 10 yards to get to the hole and get north-south. That's what we don't have here. You got Charbonnet who can run downhill between the tackles fine, but he's not super quick within 10 yards. Ken's super quick, but doesn't understand where to hit and wants to not put his foot in the ground and go north-south right away a lot of the time, partly because the line's falling back in his lap. But that's where you're kind of missing that guy. You almost need to take Charbonnet and Ken Walker and put them together. And then you'd have the actual ideal back for this system, in my opinion.
Stan's been hard up on the A-chain thing that we kicked the tires on at the trade deadline, and Dolphins are going to be probably in a little bit of turnover mode, maybe not want to giving him a contract extension. Maybe that's the guy who's already worked in the outside zone system out there in Miami with some familiarity in the scheme already that they look for, especially if Walker's to walk, if they don't like the guys in the draft, if there's not that prototype back to this. Because you're right, there's a certain style of back. I'd even offer to you that those guys that went after Davis, they weren't as talented, but it was kind of Clint Portis. It was the same kind of style. Orlando Gary, same kind of style of back. I mean, it's just a little bit more size, just a little bit of like slight plus size with that explosion. So he can get through the hole, and if the arm tackle's on him, he's going to be able to still pull through that arm tackle in the hole and go give me that 5-6 yards. And that's the kind that they've been hyper kind of fixated in for the most part, even in Arian Foster, a little bit bigger on versus the backs of the time. So will be interesting a situation to see how they address that one. Daniel Bailey, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, I might be biased. Brando's the funny one. That's very kind of you to say, Daniel. I appreciate that. I think all these gentlemen are very, very funny and do great work. If you don't already, by the way, I don't know where you guys are watching, which way you're watching from. We got at one point, I think, over 1,300 people in the chat today, collectively speaking.
Nice.
Seahawks forever. Dan Viens, Hawks Eye with Bryce Coots. And if you don't want to know what field goals is, are you a Hawk fan? Have you not been, where you been at last 15 years here? Come on now. Get with it. All of these gentlemen do fine work on all of their separate ends of it. And as an announcement here, now is as good a time as any here for us. We are going to the Senior Bowl. The Syndicate was going to the Senior Bowl. We're going to talk to some prospects. No, I'm kidding. We're going to Senior Bowl. We're going to go down there, check it out for a few days, get in there. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah. Hell yeah. Wait, hold on. I got one too. Wait a second here. Let's go.
There we go.
So please do, guys, keep in it for that. We're going to pump a bunch of content out that week. Hopefully have some good internet that we can work off of and give you guys the lowdown on these prospects as we're going to get into it. It's going to be a very important draft here for the Seahawks potentially here on this one as we look at it with those early picks. And already as Dan was mentioning in our group chat, some interesting guys getting some invites out there to the Senior Bowl.
just in that you're going to hear a little bit about from Dan's perspective of, it's a bad draft, but it's a weird draft. Quarterbacks, that drives a lot of it, not as much the blue chip, but there is some really good floor guys in this draft. And if you're talking about this team and what it needs maybe going into next year is finding floors at the positions that you need to inject so you can just go. Your outlook on that as well so far early on with that? We're very early on, I know, in the process, but.
Yeah, my view on the draft is always that there's never really a bad draft. It's about how your scouting staff and your organization prepares for it, and it's about fit. You can always find players. This last year's draft, what was the book on it? Light on blue chippers at the top, maybe only 4 or 5, decent depth, but not a lot of game-changing type players. Well, tell that to the Cleveland Browns, the New England Patriots. They've completely transformed their futures and their profile by absolutely nailing last year's draft. It's all about the work you do. It's about finding fits. And there's always going to be those. And it's the work you do in March and April leading up to the draft too. That's where it gets a little tricky with people demanding that, nope, you got to do this or you got to do that. Cause show me what we do in March first before we get there. Right. But as we were saying, I like what I'm seeing so far from the players that are accepting invites this year. It seems to be, and maybe that's an advantage to it being a draft light in blue chippers. There might not be that many guys in this year's draft that it would behoove them to skip the Senior Bowl. They might not be in that type of position, right? And so I think there's going to be a lot of quality across the board in a bunch of different position groups there. Guys that I wanted to see are accepting their invites. It's going to be fun to watch.
We've seen the Senior Bowl have more of an impact than ever before in recent years, to your point on that. And this year, I agree that it'll be even more probably turned up because of those reasons, because it's more varied as far as where these guys could truly land in the draft on the back of a real stellar Senior Bowl performance. Mookie, have you had a chance to look at any of the draft class at this point yet, or get a just general feel for it? And what might that be if you do?
I think there is always some talent that you can find even in quote unquote weaker drafts. And I also believe that weaker drafts correlate with weaker quarterback classes or quarterback classes that are not as heavily hyped. And boy, did this year's projected quarterback class fall apart. No, Arch Manning's not going to be the number 1 pick. He's back at Texas. Garrett Nussmeier is sooner going to be undrafted than anything else. Who else am I thinking of? Lenora Sellers
was another guy that was supposed to be a high first rounder.
Yeah,
Drew
Kate
Waller.
Sellers is going back to school. Like Heisman contender thing. Blew
Tyler
up
Van Dyke, Carson Beck.
Yeah,
Sellers is going back to school.
Yep. So yeah, Sellers, I don't understand why he stayed at South Carolina. I know there had to have been a better school who could offer more money and get him a better supporting cast than he does at South Carolina. But yeah, this doesn't seem like a heavily hyped draft class, and maybe that's why the Seahawks are fine with having so few picks. But I'm not as bothered because there are not as many, even with free agency and everything else coming up. Come April, I don't feel like there are a ton of pressing needs. Of course, there's going to be a need on the offensive line to beef up the interior, but for the time being, I'm comfortable with what they got in the safety spot, comfortable with what they got at linebacker, comfortable on the interior defensive line, maybe a little bit with the edge rusher. So I would say the one thing I'm looking at more, I will look at more closely kind of as the season winds down, is what can they do at the edge rusher position, outside linebacker? Because let's face it, Hall has been good, but the sack productivity hasn't been there. Mafe is not staying. Like, that's not happening. And then Chenna has been very good this year, but we still have to figure out if he's a lock to be on the roster next year. There could be some turnover there. So other than Ruben Bain and a couple other dudes like who might go earlier than when Seattle is going to pick, I'd like to see where the depth is going to kind of settle out. But that's the benefit of the Senior Bowl, right? The Senior Bowl, all these other bowls in January, and even through the combine, all these players that you don't really think about in a supposedly weaker draft, their profiles will get elevated. So, I mean, we saw with Nicky Minmori. Is Nicky Minmori necessarily an early second-round pick, if not for that immediate impressive showing at the combine? Because I think he should have been a pretty high-level prospect. But just that alone, I think already had people hyped up. And I think he was a first-round quality player, but there are always dudes who end up being combine freaks and always dudes who are Senior Bowl standouts that end up just playing their way or performing their way into the upper end. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. And for full disclosure, I will most likely not be at the Senior Bowl. I still have to man field goals. And if Seattle makes a Super Bowl, hint, there may be another trip coming my way. But otherwise, that's why you guys are going to be at the Senior Bowl, and you're going to find the gems, because that's one thing that John Schneider has excelled at over the years. It's those gems in the meat of the draft, the middle portion of the draft, where the Seahawks have been able to build their roster effectively over the years.
And the Senior Bowl's carried heavyweight with John. LJ Collier, not a
Oh,
great
we know
production with TC, or 90% win production, 90% win rate at the Senior Bowl during the week. That helped to get him drafted by Seattle. Gray's able last year, and what he showed down there. Bryce, what are you getting from a general vibe off this class off the rip?
I think I said it a bit earlier too, is I just think this is a draft that's designed for teams that don't have a lot of holes in their rosters, where you can go and you can get pieces at potentially better spots for yourselves. And, some teams are obviously going to take swings on prospects that are going to jump up because of their scores and so on. But this draft might line up better for John in a spot of, hey, look, we can fill some of our holes that we need to fill on this team with good value players. And to your point, Brandon, that have a better floor than maybe in other drafts. And we don't have to go crazy when we get them. They may just be in the right spot for us to go get. So I think there's some good talent. I'm going to be excited to be down at Senior Bowl and see that talent up close and live with you guys down there. And it should be a good start to the draft season.
I think kind of the ripple effect of what is generally perceived to be a little bit weaker draft, and the fact the Seahawks only have 4 picks, is I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive in February, re-signing their own guys, and March in free agency. I think, which, keep this in mind, fans out there, because a lot of you like to hang on to the idea of comp picks when it comes to letting free agents walk, right? And if we could let Kenneth Walker walk, we could let Boye Mafe walk, which I think we will. Reek Woolen might not re-sign. It doesn't mean we're going to get 3 third-round comp picks, because I think we're going to be out there signing free agents too, and they'll offset. But I think they're going to be, maybe it's setting them up for a more aggressive free agency period before the draft, because they know they've already done the work and they can see what's coming, and they'll be prepared for that.
They got a lot of money to spend. They have very little dead money. They're in a very much prime position if they want to go in that direction and top off the tank to be able to do so. To your point, Dan, give me, if you guys can, just one guy that's you've liked. Doesn't have to be a guy that Seahawks necessarily going to pick, but one guy in this draft so far that it doesn't have to be a guy that you think is going to be a star. Just maybe a guy you like in this draft. Dan, you first.
I mean, I already mentioned Dunker, and here I just spent 5 minutes earlier talking about how it might not be the best idea to go with another rookie on the offensive line. But if you were, or if the draft just falls that way, right? Like John and his staff and Mike might look at their needs, and they might look at who they're able to re-sign from their own roster. And they might, go about their business in March in such a way, sort of like they did last year, where they're like, there aren't any options out here in free agency to upgrade our offensive line. And there's nobody that we can trade for. We tried. And so we're going to take care of everything else. And then we're just going to target guys that we like in the draft. And it's that I really do like Dunker sliding inside to guard. I think he fits the profile. He's got a cool personality. I do think that he's Zabel-like in that way. He's a big old farm kid. He's got the tats. He's got the red mullet. I think he's a guy that people would embrace immediately, like they did with Zabel. And if you are going to go young again on that side, plus he's been playing right tackle, so the kick inside the guard's not as severe. You're not asking him to change sides. I think that's a guy this early in the process anyway that I like. Julian Neal, the corner out of Arkansas, is another guy that I like as well. I think he would fit the scheme, and that's a guy that stood out to me early in this process. I will say this, because corner might be in need. That is one position group that looks like it's pretty solid in this draft.
Good floors on a lot of those guys. I don't know if you see it the same way. I don't see the sparkling, lockdown island corner, but guys that can be scheme fluid from zone to man and then have a nice floor as athleticism and speed, not missing some huge. There's a lot of these guys out the gate for me have been kind of in that place, Dan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun group to watch down in Mobile.
Oh yeah.
I am always biased towards watching the skill position players when I look at the draft. And at the moment, wide receiver is not a need for the Seahawks, but if they let Kupp go as a cap casualty, it might kind of be, because we don't know what Horton's situation is, and there's still no guarantee they actually keep Shaheed. So I still think there could be some depth that has to be replenished there. Bobo could be gone. I mean, Tariq Young's a free agent, so they might have to tweak some things. I'm not saying they're going to draft a receiver, and really shouldn't in the first round, but man, Bryce loves Jonah Coleman, and I love Jonah Coleman, but I so much love Denzel Boston. Like, I think he'll end up being one of the first receivers taken in the draft. So forget about him being taken like in the super late 20s or early 30s, but he just has all the talent in the world. And I also like Carnell Tate from Ohio State. I know everybody's fallen in love with Jeremiah Smith, and rightfully so. But I think Carnell Tate is, to me, a future Pro Bowler. And at this point, can you really go wrong drafting from that school at the wide receiver position?
No.
I mean,
Hartline's gone though. That's the one problem there too. Is Hartline's out though now? That was the big common
well, he's gone
denominator.
for next year, but like Hartline still coached this year's set of guys, and I think Carnell Tate is absolutely a guy who's going to be a first-round pick. And I still think that Seattle should keep an eye on the wide receiver position, given some of the uncertainty below Smith and Jigba, whether for injury reasons or for contract reasons.
I love Boston. I've got 4 first-round grades right now. Boston's one of my guys. I do admit, I think there is a chance he could be in that 20s range, depending on what he tests time-wise and how running fast he goes there, Mookie. So I think it's a little bit open, but I love his talent, and he's like kind of in that mold of what you've got from like the Drake London types a little bit, and how he's sort of built. You can see the success and how that works the next level with this body type and how he wins. Bryce, what you got?
So if we are to draft a guard, if we are to draft one, there's one guy that stood out to me. He's a tackle right now in college, but I think he's going to move into guard, and that is Brian Parker out of Duke. I really like his tape. I think he fits what we want to do in the zone scheme. And watching his tape, one player that stands out to me that I really wish Seattle had opportunity to get was Zach Zinter from Michigan. He's got a very similar skill set and ability to move like Zinter. And again, I think Zinter is a great zone scheme guard. And he's the type of guy that I'd be interested in for Seattle to, potentially go look at. The other guy for me, though, is like a pipe dream, and it's a running back. Scares everybody that I'm about to say running back, but it's Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
Like I would, and I don't think he's going to be there, and I don't think it's a situation where Seattle can get him. But when you put on Jeremiah Love's, tape and you watch him, he just moves differently, and he can do everything. He can block, he can run between the tackles. He, again, would be the ideal, to your point, Brandon, when you said get the O-line fixed, then go get yourself that fancy running back. He's that fancy running back you go get where it's behind that O-line and you just like watch him and you're like, oh, okay, cool. 5 yards every time we give him the ball. Sweet. Great. Even if there's a guy that's in his face, he's going to make a miss in the hole and he's going to still get 5 yards. Like, he's that special of a player. So those two are probably my 2 kind of draft crushes right now. One of them more realistic than the other.
I like it, man. I like it. And so all your guys' picks on those are all really good players. So interesting to see how this goes along the line. Just get in the process. I'm sure we're going to get a couple of them as we go along there. And man, Dunker, man, Dan, just I love the thought. I was second I turned on the tape and I was like zone blocker, Iowa lineman, and watching the pad level at tackle, and then saying like, oh, unlike Fanu and the Miami kid, they'll be like, there's enough there. I don't think there's enough there, because remember with Iowa, they just run the ball to. Remember last year they ran the ball 24/7 with Caleb Johnson there. It was like just run.
Yeah.
So it's like they've protected a little bit of that pass protection stuff, which just makes the likelihood, I think, more of him, maybe kicking inside. But we'll see where it goes with that.
I was going to go with the defensive tackle, but I didn't want to open that can of worms because I know I get so much backlash when I suggest that they need to add to that group next year, because fans think I'm crazy and they think that we don't need to add another tackle until 2030, apparently. So I just didn't want to go down that road.
Well, please just say it's not Peter Woods, because I turned on that tape and I fell asleep.
It was Caden McDonald. Okay,
good. Yeah. Woods does nothing for me. And that's a guy going in the top 10. Nothing. That guy's effort this year was miserable. All right. Well, we've crossed 2 hours here. We'll kind of put a button here with just the last couple of items, guys. We've got a primetime game this week. You guys let's start with Bryce on this. Bryce, you ever been in a primetime? What's the best primetime Seahawks game you got to watch in person in the stadium?
Ooh, I have 2. One, I don't know if it counts as primetime, but was the initial Beastquake. That was one.
Yeah, that's not primetime. Still daytime.
It was primetime on the wild card weekend on the Saturday. I'm just saying.
By the time it ended, it was dark. Yeah,
it was, especially when the run happened. Best primetime game outside of that I've been to would have been actually the week before that game. Charlie Whitehurst starts for the Seattle Seahawks to get in at 7-9, and Will Herring gets the game closing interception. So that was probably because that game got flexed into prime time. It was originally like a 1 o'clock kickoff on a Sunday, and they flexed it into Sunday night.
I like it. Mookie, what you got?
None in person, but my favorite Seahawks primetime game ever happened right around this time 13 years ago. Jim Harbaugh's birthday gets spoiled by the Seahawks, 42-13. I had just left Seattle like a couple of weeks prior. And I could not watch the Bills game because they didn't have it on local television on the East Coast. So the first Seahawks game I could watch in full on the East Coast when I was living there was the 49ers game. And that got flexed into Sunday Night Football. And even though Seattle didn't win the division, that game was to get a playoff spot. And the Niners were just rolling. They were beaten. They were winning. They beat New England the week before. They were up huge in New England and then hung on to win late. And Seattle crushed them. 42-13. It was, 28-0 at one point. And the only play that I missed live because I had to go to the bathroom or something was the Sherman block field goal return touchdown. But that was perfection from the Seahawks. And to me, that was the real start of the belief that this was a Super Bowl caliber team. So that is my favorite Seahawks primetime game ever because they just destroyed the eventual NFC champions in a way that really they hadn't got destroyed during that run with Harbaugh in that 3-year span.
Fun thing, if you ever get a chance, that Mookie, I did a funniest moments video of Seahawks history, and there's a moment that they catch of Carroll on the sideline there where I was able to get a lip read from him, and he's looking right at Harbaugh, and he says, "It must effing suck to get your ass kicked on primetime television." And I've got the subtitles right below when he's saying it, and he's just full on Carroll at his most like bravado and feeling himself, kind of time. Very cool moment in that game. Dan, how about you?
So I was just looking up because I couldn't remember the year. Apparently, though, it was November 27th, 2006. Packers Monday Night Football. And
I was going to mention that.
It was such a memorable game because I remember there was no snow in the forecast at all. And so we're walking into the game. It's about an hour before, and just the most Hollywood, like picturesque Hallmark movie rom-com snow starts falling. And it's just this gorgeous scene. And so everyone's in this festive mood. And then the Packers get out to this huge lead. It was Brett Favre still at that time. They're up big at halftime. And then Sean Alexander, I remember, just went off. The Seahawks ended up winning. It looks like I think final score 34-24. So they ended up blowing them away. But in that 3 hours that the snow fell, so much chaos. That was the year that the city of Seattle decided to stop using salt or some sort of chemical in the way that they line the roads when it snows because they were worried about runoff into the bay. And so the roads all packed with clumps of snow, and then the temperature dropped about 20 degrees and it all froze. So you literally couldn't drive your car in Seattle because it was too bumpy and it would shred your tires. It took us 4 hours to get home from what was then Questfield to Kent. There were people, I'd never seen cars abandoned on the side of the highway before. People were just like giving up and walking home. And there were people that reported they didn't get home to Tacoma the next day from the game until the sun was coming up. So after all that, it was a win. But for a lot of those reasons, it was one of the most memorable games I can remember going to.
Nice. All right. And last couple of donations. Mine would be, by the way, Fail Mary. Got to be there in person. Nobody knew if it was a catch or not in the stadium. Everybody's just like, what happened? It's like, felt like 10 minutes went by before there was a call on the field. Yeah. That was an amazing game. Last couple of donations here. We'll get you guys' picks. Dana Bailey, thank you for another $2 donation. Says McIntosh is my pick. North and South runner, quick at the 10 yards. Indeed, he ran, I think, a 1.54 10-yard split. And when he was being tested at the combine, slow 40, but a fast 10-yard split on the back of McIntosh.
He got hurt again.
It is a shame he's got hurt. Probably will be in the mix next year, but then how healthy is he? And is he back from the ACL or not fully? We'll have to see on that part. Thank you, though, Daniel. Gokin, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, great show, y'all. Mookie, are you on YT? 10 out of 10 ball knowledge.
No, I don't have that kind of time to do my own YouTube channel.
It's a lot. It is a lot on that, Mookie, with that side of it. Appreciate you, though, Koken. Thank you for that. Very kind of you to say. Guile, thank you for a $5 donation here. He says, late to the party. If Sam has another 4-pick game, do the Seahawks move on from Sam?
What, like Friday? No.
No, I was asked this question on another show today that like, hey, has your opinion of Sam changed over the last 4 weeks since the Rams game about the future? And I said, maybe a little bit. Like I'm not going to ignore what we're seeing, but I still say he signs another contract after this one.
I come back to that the quarterback position is driven heavily by the factors at hand that are helping him or not helping him. And then he can establish beyond that a little bit. Yes, there's room for a quarterback to do more. But when you've not given him a capable, competent, consistent running game throughout the course of this season in almost every single game, because when you look at our rushing yards, it's really buoyed up by the explosive runs. That would look a lot worse if you took out some of those occasional runs that they pop off. You've not given him that. First half in pass protection and the way that teams have been able to attack our pass pro conceptually. I mean, you have Zach Charbonnet blocking Latu one-on-one, coming back across the formation post-snap for a guy that's unblocked. Ridiculous. Has nothing to do with Sam in that moment. Some of the game plans that Kubiak's trotted out, like being unprepared for the Minnesota Vikings, living in shotgun against the San Francisco 49ers in week 1. I'm not trying to let Sam off the hook. I'm not trying to say he's played perfect and he's wonderful and there's nothing wrong with him. I think Dan's way of saying it is that's a little disconcerting. But I was also pointing at that time to the fact that he could control the stuff that was going on. It wasn't Sam seeing ghosts or here's him inherently broken and now he's finally showing you his true face. It was do these specific things and you can start to avoid the troubles you're running into. He's done that. That's why he's only got 1 interception in the last 4 weeks.
I'll say this too, to add to that, Brandon, is if you go back and watch the Rams game, the amount of protection failures we had on just interiorly on the quick game, again, led to Sam's interceptions in a way. And not just me seeing it and not just other people like yourself seeing it. An ex-NFL quarterback in Matt Hasselbeck mentioned it, saying, yeah, these led to a lot of the interceptions for Sam was just complete breakdowns in pass protection. Till you give the guy a proper O-line, and it's something we've all been saying in Seattle. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, they're still talking about the O-line. Until you can give a consistent offensive line that has a consistent run game that's effective consistently and pass protection, you'll never truly know what any quarterback's going to look like unless you got Russell Wilson in his prime that can run around and pirouette around like a ballerina and throw the ball 50 yards downfield after the defense is done covering for 7 seconds.
And not to hammer this, Bryce said consistent. People, because this is where people straw man this. Oh, so everything's got to be perfect for the quarterback in order for him to say, not what he said. It's got to be not league worst. It's got to be not at the bottom of the barrel. That's the thing. Take those factors up. And pass pro's been aided heavily by how much you've been able to run the ball, by how much you've been up in these games. We may have some issues with pass pro in general, but they've been kind of covered up a little bit by the nature of how you function offensively. So I just need to see more of that for me before I'm going to get to this. Sam it's very easy to point to the quarterback, and Sam's not perfect, but he's more than good enough for what we're paying him. This guy can win us a Super Bowl. Let's get these other things that we can fix fixed, and you'll watch him soar, in my opinion. Let's wrap this up with this, guys, and let's get a final score in this game. Where's our gut? You're down to the 11th hour here. We've turned it all over. We put the game plan out here. We know how to attack this team, so give me the final score. We'll start out with Dan. How's this thing gonna go?
I said it earlier. I'll be literal about it. It's going to be 21-19 again, but this time the Seahawks come out on top. The key is can't fall behind 14-3. I think if they can just get out of the first quarter in good shape, have a better start than they've had, even a field goal on their first drive. We haven't had a touchdown now in, I think, 6 games on our opening drive after we had that nice little streak of consecutive games where we were scoring initially. But just stem the tide. Don't get behind early and play a clean game. 21-19, the defense gets it done, and Sam's just good enough to finally get the monkey off his back.
Love it. Mookie, what you got?
Unfortunately, I'll be the one kind of being the sourpuss here. I think it's going to be Rams 23, Seahawks 20, and exactly. I'm a full Debbie Downer here. I just think the red zone offensive issues are going to be Seattle's downfall in this game again, like it was in the first matchup. I think they're running too much in the red zone while not being effective in it. And Kubiak's been too stubborn about that. So I think the Rams just edge this out, and the field position game is going to be so huge because Seattle averages the worst starting field position in the league. I think that has directly led to some of the cheap points they're giving up through the short fields because the offense isn't sustaining drives. So another one where I think the points allowed will not accurately reflect how well the defense plays in the game. So I think the Rams just edge this out, and we'll have to eat the sweep. But hey, what if there's a rematch in the playoffs and it's in LA? And that could be for a trip to the Super Bowl.
Oh, they're playing 3 times.
I can definitely see it happening. Absolutely. The way this NFC is going right now, playoff-wise, and setting the stage. Bryce, what you got, man? You're the tiebreaker on this one.
I got 24-20 Seahawks, and Sam leads a game-winning drive in 2 minutes and hits Cooper Kupp for the winning touchdown like he did with Justin Jefferson
Let's go.
against Seattle last year to kill our season. He does it this time and puts a kind of a reminder dagger and a lot of Seahawks fans' minds that he can actually do it in the clutch. And Cooper Kupp gets a little bit of revenge at the same time.
Gosh, that'd be good to hear. If just for but we can shut that narrative down for a time, right? Which is one that continues to keep swirling back up here every few, there's other things to talk about with this that aren't, he's part of the solution to me, not part of the problem, but I love that outlook of it. I got 2017. I think it's going to be a tough one, but I do think we edge it out in this one as well. And then we find just enough footing. Sam avoids the turnovers. And I just don't think this Rams team's playing its best football. And the Devontae Adams, that loss for them, they've been a team that struggled in the red zone. He's been the big part of helping them get over that hill and hump here with his performance and losing that. I mean, I watched the film last week. Lions were doing the Calvin Johnson at the goal line, 2 cornerbacks on Devontae thing. Boy, that defense secondary is awful, man. Every year, it's just like a virtual eyes to that secondary. It's like, oh my God. But that's a big loss for them. I don't think they have the same kind of answers, even with their tight ends that are there. Ferguson's kind of a catch and run guy, no Higbee, and Parkinson's fine, but he's getting overstated a little bit in the way, he's been fine, on that. Do me this favor, folks, hit that like button wherever you may be watching this. As I said, we have over 1,300 folks here. This is a show that comes at you twice a month, halfway in the month, at the end of the month, every Wednesday. We're usually somewhere between 5 and 7, depending on how our times. I'll follow up on that, but keep on the lookout for that. If you're not covering or not watching these guys, you're not getting the full meal deal as far as your Seahawks coverage is concerned. Seahawks Forever with Dan Viens here on YouTube is where you can find him. Please sub up on over there. You got Hawks Eye here with Bryce Coots as well here on YouTube. And then fieldgoals.com. This is our last bastion of journalistic integrity in this game, I'm telling you. And Mookie is the forerunner of that, as he does a great job, and they've done a great job for years over there, doing great at just getting you all that information details. I'm sitting there and Google it. I got all the information, great articles in addition to it. Please go over there and check out their site as well. Really appreciate you guys doing this twice a week, being able to chop this up. We went long today, but the discussion was great. And let's face it, guys, we've got something to be as excited about as we've been in years in Seattle.
We sure do. I think tomorrow might be a definitive statement too. If they can pull this thing off tomorrow, we might have to stop talking about having trouble winning at home. I've felt that tide turning. I don't know about you guys since week one. You can hear it. You can feel it in the broadcast. People that are in the stadium, people that are using my seats this year are telling me that you're seeing fewer visiting fans in the stadium. And if you're ever going to prove that thing has turned, tomorrow night's the night to do it.
Go ahead, Mookie.
Going to say they're 5-2 at home this year already, so that's a significant improvement from years past. You win this home finale, you probably just a reminder to everybody: winning this game doesn't mean you got the division or even the 1 seed locked up. San Francisco's still lurking. That could also be the other big hurdle to clear for the division title and the 1 seed. But you win this game 6-2 at home. To me, that's following up on your promise that you were going to be better at home this year.
I'll say this: 12s, the rivalry jerseys are coming out, and the big point of them was the sound wave. Be loud tomorrow and make the Rams regret coming to Seattle.
This is a great way to finish up with this, and I want to add just on top of these guys saying on this to those out there, because this has been lost in recent years. The volume has gone down in recent years, and let us old head here remind you of what once was. We were a stadium that was an expansion franchise that wasn't good, that didn't have a lot of good players, but we realized, seemingly as kind of a synergistic thing in this Pacific Northwest, that when we all are screaming at our loudest in this stadium, it actually has a tangible effect on the game. You have this game that we've turned over all these parts and pieces that is so close, right down the line, nose to nose, at the finish line. One mitigating factor that can push that over the line is you giving them that old school Seahawks flavor from that stadium. And that means you take the hot dog out of your mouth. That means you put the popcorn down. That means you stand up on your feet, you look around you, and you beg the people around you to do the same. Give them all you got in that stadium. Give them back again that old vibe and feeling, and you will go get this win this upcoming game. I'll tell you what. Let's get it, guys. Come on.
I'm fired up now. I want to run through this wall.
Let's go. Let's go. I know we got it in us. I know they've been waiting. I know they've been sitting there, Dan, going, I don't know. Sam Darnold, they've broken my heart so many times in recent. I toss that out. It's 11-3. How many times have you gotten here? That number 1 seed is right there. Not only is it a win over the Rams, not only is it a win over the rivals, not only is it to set the stage to get this division, it's to get the number 1 seed, which you've gone to the Super Bowl the last 3 times you've had it.
This is that valuable. So show that sense of urgency. Thursday night, I don't care if you got to get drunk, I don't care if you got to get sober, get high, whatever you got to do it, and walk in that stadium with your game face on, able to help out those people. Because if it's just 60%, if it's just 70%, it doesn't have the same impact, I'm telling you.
It's a great reminder to some of the younger fans out there that might not have seen it, that it used to not matter if a team coming into Lumen Field might be better than us, have more talent, have a better roster. It didn't matter because that home atmosphere was so dramatic, it impacted the game. And tonight would be a great example to see that again.
Give it to them if you're there. It's your job. It's your duty. It's your familial duty. Your grandfathers before you knew what time it was when they walked in that stadium. Don't let this tradition fall away. Make it strong. Reinvigorate it again tomorrow. And let's go get this dub, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Look forward to going to the Senior Bowl with you guys. Please do get subbed up. Please do be following these guys. We will be back in a couple weeks, hopefully with the Seattle Seahawks team that's got the crosshairs set right in on that number 1 seed. But until then, please don't you ever forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.